Chapter 460. Roar. Bai An's roar reverberated between heaven and earth as it desperately shook its head, as if trying to get rid of something. Faintly, in the flames, one could see that there seemed to be a human lying on top of Bai An's head. That's right, a human was actually attached to Bai An's head, surrounded by blood-red cyclones to resist Bai An's flames. Heavens, Qin Yin opened her small mouth and said, "Who is that, so strong?" Lin Muyu narrowed her eyes and said, "Hide the warhorses and prepare for battle." Hiding the 3 warhorses together in a groove between the rocks, they pulled out their weapons from afar and prepared for battle. Behind them, the people of Giant Rock's sect had finally killed the bloodthirsty tiger. It was unknown how many people had died. On the forest path, another group of people charged over. They were the people of Extreme Ice sect, each of them wearing a silver badge on their chest. The leader of the group had white hair and a strong aura. He was Su Yi, the sect leader of Extreme Ice sect, and his cultivation was very close to the Saint Realm. "Sect leader, look, the divine weapon has appeared." A disciple of Ice Severance School reached out his hand and pointed at Bai Wu's head. In the fiery light, the man attached to Bai Wu's head suddenly roared, exerted his strength with both arms, and pulled out a shining long sword from Bai Wu's head. In the magma-like hot blood splashed out, the man quickly retreated with his divine weapon. But Bai Wu was not easy to deal with. It kept waving its sharp claws. Pung! With a heavy blow, the young man and the divine weapon fell into the sea of fire in the forest. Su Yi's eyes were filled with greed as he said, "Disciples of Extreme Ice sect, listen up, follow me to chase after the divine weapon. Go around Bai An's giant beast. This spirit beast is not something a human can defeat." "Yes." The group urged their horses to take a detour. Lin Muyu, Qin Yin, and Tang Xiaoxi stood halfway up the mountain, not in a hurry to fight. Beside them, the people of Giant Rock's sect were constantly injured, but they still desperately chased after the divine weapon, as if they were possessed. Are divine weapons really that important? Lin Muyu frowned. His gaze fell on the spiritual beast Swanmi. As far as his eyes could see, there were bright golden lines on the head of Swanmi. After a careful count, there were a total of 6 golden lines and 4 silver lines. He couldn't help but sweat in his palms. He said nervously and excitedly, "A 400-year-old spiritual beast. Does it count as the best in the continent?" Qin Yi nodded, "And there hasn't been such a mythological beast on the continent for at least 1,000 years. Are we going to kill Tao Wu now?" "No, let's take a look. It's too chaotic." "Okay." The forest at the foot of the mountain was indeed chaotic. The people of Extreme Ice sect wanted to go around Bai An, but Bai An's murderous nature was aroused. Waving its sharp claws, it continuously smashed the people of Extreme Ice sect into a pile of minced meat. The cultivators in the surrounding forest also seemed to hear Bai An's voice and came over. More and more people came, and in the blink of an eye, the forest was filled with tens of thousands of cultivators. All of them looked at the scene in front of them as if they were possessed. Whether it was taking the divine weapon or killing Bai An, they could all be named heroes. "Damn it, kill Bai An first." Su Yi saw that many of the people of Extreme Ice sect had already been killed by Bai An. With a face full of anger, he pulled out his long sword and jumped off his horse. The long sword was full of fighting spirit light. Suddenly, the surroundings were covered in frost. Su Yi's entire body seemed to be wrapped in ice, and he struck Bai An's left head heavily. Bang! The sword chi and the cold light hit the lower jaw of the spirit beast together. Suddenly, Bai An let out a cry and raised its head very high. The spiritual chi on its lower jaw dispersed, and the gang chi completely protected it. It only felt pain, but not injury. It swung its sharp claws and pounced on Su Yi. The wind from the claws swept across. Su Yi saw it clearly. He lightly kicked his feet in the air and suddenly sped up to avoid the attack. Instead, several people behind him were turned into minced meat by the wind from Bai An's claws. "Bastard!" Su Yi's face was full of anger. At this time, the people of Giant Rock's sect had arrived. Ouyang Qing gritted his teeth and said, "Once this fierce beast Bian is born, it will definitely harm the human world. Sect Master Su Yi, why don't we join hands to kill this fierce beast and do justice for the heavens?" "Okay, Sect Master Ouyang, please be careful." "Yes." Not only the Ice Extreme sect and the Giant Rock sect, but also more and more cultivators had gathered and surrounded by an arrows were flying everywhere, but they could not cause any damage to this ancient giant beast. On the other side of the forest, the young man with the divine weapon was running towards the Cloud Ridge. He wanted to cross the Cloud Ridge and leave the Heaven Pivot province. Rustle, the figure on the maple leaf swept past. A person flew past like a bolt of lightning and suddenly stopped in front of the young man. He slowly pulled out a golden blade and said with a smile, "You want to take the divine weapon back to the devil race so soon?" The person who came was Lin Muyu. The young man's mouth slightly curved up, and the divine weapon in his hand was extremely bright. He smiled slightly and said, "You are indeed not simple. You are not as stupid as those humans." Lin Muyu looked at him calmly and said, "You are also a 5-star devil ancestor. Tell me, are you one of the 15 elders of the devil race?" The young man was stunned. Who are you? How do you know the 15 elders of the divine race?" One of the 15 elders, Lian Hai, died by my sword." Lin Muyu deliberately provoked. Immediately, the young demon's expression overflowed with killing intent. "You are Lin Muyu? The Lin Muyu who drowned my army?" "That's right. Unless you kill me today, don't even think of taking the divine weapon. Then let's see what you can do." The young man smiled arrogantly. "Don't think that you are so great just because you killed that idiot Lian Hai. You can kill me in your next life." Lin Muyu did not speak. Her figure suddenly moved, and she appeared in front of Ji Luo like lightning. Her sword was wrapped in the divine power of the god-binding chains, and she fiercely attacked. Clang! High-level demons were well-versed in swordsmanship, so Ji Luo naturally could easily block the attack. But the moment the swords collided, a ray of sword chi left the dragon spirit sword and directly attacked Ji Luo's chest, splitting light slash. Ah! Ji Luo was startled for a moment, but she quickly reacted. The Grandmaster demonic energy surged out from her chest, and the revolving force quickly dissipated the power of the light-splitting slash. The sword light followed the rapid rotation of the Grandmaster demonic energy, and with a bang, it chopped down a huge tree not far away. Lin Muyu's attacks were extraordinarily fast. Her sword moved like a shadow, and she attacked dozens of times in a row. But Ji Luo's swordsmanship was indeed much better than Lian Hai's. She either parried or dodged the sharp edge of the dragon spirit sword. Just as she was about to finish her attack, she lightly lifted her sword, and the sword absorption technique lifted the dragon spirit sword into the air. Her battle boots were wrapped in a thick Grandmaster demon power as she kicked. Whoosh! Lin Muyu's kick also came with a powerful force. Bang! The two were forced back several steps. It was clear that after fighting so many powerful demons, Lin Muyu had a general understanding of the demon's swordsmanship. Ji Luo, on the other hand, held the divine weapon in her hand. A trace of surprise flashed across her face. She gritted her teeth and smiled. "Looks like I can't win if I don't use my full strength." "All right." Lin Muyu smiled and nodded. Behind her, Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi had also arrived. But it seemed like Lin Muyu didn't want them to help, so they didn't make a move. They were just waiting for an opportunity. Ji Luo didn't seem to be afraid of being surrounded by 3 powerful experts. Perhaps high-level demons had always been this arrogant, especially top experts like Ji Luo. Crackle, crackle, bolts of lightning appeared in the air and quickly gathered on the divine weapon. Ji Luo sneered. Lightning arts. She infused lightning into the blade, and the lightning shot up into the sky. In terms of strength, this kind of lightning energy was many times stronger than Lin Muyu's sword of lightning. Die. Ji Luo's figure was like lightning. Her speed was not inferior to falling star steps. She swung her sword downwards and shouted, "Have a taste of the power of the heavens." Night had fallen, and the lightning was extremely bright. Lin Muyu's body spun, the brilliant sun battle light madly pouring into the dragon spirit sword. The opponent's weapon was even sharper than the dragon spirit sword and could not be underestimated. The starlight on her wrist flowed into the sword and met the attack head-on, first astral light. Bang! Two powerful forces exploded, causing the surrounding leaves to fly into the air. A streak of starlight and lightning clashed, shooting into the sky with no way out. The explosion was deafening. Ji Luo was forced back several steps, but Lin Muyu was in an even worse state. Some of the lightning energy had flowed into her arm, causing her to feel numb. It was obvious that first astral light had lost in this clash. At the foot of the mountain, the people surrounding by and all looked up at the starlight and lightning shooting into the sky. All of them were dumbfounded. Is this the human world or purgatory? What's happening over there? It was deadly hot, but the energy fluctuations there were also very deadly. Z. 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 The surrounding rocks and ground crackled with intense lightning. Ji Luo's entire being was on full display, and the divine weapon in his hand began to emit a faint whistling sound. As expected of a divine weapon from beyond the heavens, it was actually able to withstand such a powerful attack without self-destructing. When Ji Luo's strength reached its peak, he flew over and unleashed another powerful attack. Rays of starlight converged into a demonic lotus that circled around Lin Muyu's body. The star lotus armor had already been activated, and Lin Muyu did not hold back in the slightest. He poured 100% of his stellar scripture's power into the dragon spirit sword, causing it to tremble. Stardust and rock energy rapidly converged and rushed towards Ji Luo's attack. 5 mountains descent from the heavens. When the two swords collided, the divine weapon in Ji Luo's hand shone even more fiercely, directly suppressing the dragon spirit sword's edge. A vast divine power rushed over, and the biting cold battle light seemed like it could tear through one's skin. Lin Muyu could barely open his eyes as the clothes on his arm were torn to shreds. In a contest of weapons, Lin Muyu's dragon spirit sword had been completely defeated. Bang! The 5 mountains descend from the heavens transformed into a fiery red energy ball that shot into the sky. The power of the sword was actually deflected into the air by Ji Luo, but Ji Luo had expended a large amount of Grandmaster demonic energy in order to deflect this attack. Before he could catch his breath, he looked up and saw that Lin Muyu's left palm was filled with Xian energy of heaven and earth, and power was rushing towards him from all directions. 5 elements 8 wastelands annihilation. Damn it! Ji Luo hurriedly raised his arm and shouted, "Thunder wall." Streaks of lightning converged to form a wall, protecting Ji Luo from harm. Boom! The 5 elements 8 wastelands annihilation charged at the thunder wall, and after Lin Muyu finished his attack, a flying dagger appeared in his palm. It was the little magic noise dagger. Lin Muyu! Ji Luo roared from behind the thunder wall. Don't you want the 400-year swan knees spirit stones? Why are you making things difficult for me? Separated by the thunder wall, Lin Muyu's gaze was indifferent. Demons, don't even think of leaving the cloud ridge with this sword. I will not let you use this sword to kill the people of my empire. Ji Luo, you will die here today no matter what. Chapter 461. The divine weapon in Ji Luo's hand glowed brighter and brighter. The almost transparent blade glowed with the light of the myriad of stars, looking somewhat familiar. Could it be a star? A chill passed through Lin Muyu's heart. How was this possible? Wasn't the Sword Elder's star stolen by Luo Lan? How did he fall from the heaven realm? What was going on? Just as Lin Muyu was lost in thought, Ji Luo had already circulated all the demonic power in his body. His entire body was covered in blazing lightning, and a gust of wind forced Tang Xiaoxi and Qin Yin to take a few steps back. Pa pa. Pa pa. Deep purple lightning continuously flowed from Ji Luo's body into the blade. The star-like divine weapon emitted a sharp sword cry. The body of the sword was magnificent, but it was filled with killing intent. Ji Luo's purple eyes were completely submerged in blood red. The demon cloak behind him fluttered as he laughed loudly. This sword belongs to the god race, even that swan and eye belongs to the demon race. Lin Muyu, you are destined to fail this time, he he he. I haven't used this purple lightning apocalypse for more than 1,000 years, let this move send you to hell. Ji Luo's purple eyes were completely submerged in blood red. The demon cloak behind him fluttered as he laughed loudly. This sword belongs to the god race, even that swan and eye belongs to the demon race. Lin Muyu, you are destined to fail this time, he he he. I haven't used this purple lightning apocalypse for more than 1,000 years. Purple lightning apocalypse? Lin Muyu's brows furrowed tightly. The opponent's move gave off a strong sense of oppression. Even her strongest domain pressure could not withstand it at all. It could be deduced that in terms of martial arts cultivation, this Ji Luo was above her. Moreover, he looked delicate and pretty, but she did not expect him to be more than 1,000 years old. It seemed like the cultivation of the demon race could also preserve one's appearance forever. Ha! With a shout, the 7 glorious stars' transformation slowly condensed. The sky suddenly darkened, and the starlight that filled the sky seemed to be absorbed by Lin Muyu. Even the Tao Wu in the distance turned around to look at Lin Muyu while it was fighting the crowd. With a roar, it continued to swing its huge head to fight the people who were trying to become the warriors of the Tao Wu massacre. Is this the 7 glorious stars' transformation? Ji Luo's face was brimming with battle intent and excitement as he laughed heartily, so it was this move that defeated Marshal Qianfeng. The ultimate technique of the 7 luminaries Demon Emperor was actually learned by a human. Ha ha ha, what a joke. Come, if you, Lin Muyu, are a legend and hero of humanity, then let me, Ji Luo, end this legend. He waved the long sword in his hand, and an earth-shattering purple lightning struck. The purple lightning formed a huge disc that crushed down, as if it was going to crush Lin Muyu's entire body in an instant. Be careful. Qin Yin's delicate body suddenly trembled. She opened her palms, and the true dragon god binding chains flew up. Her elegant robes fluttered in the wind as she flew close to the ground. She launched a surprise attack with the 4th style of the Dragon Slayer incantation, Golden Dragon Flames, in her palm. At the same time, Tang Xiaoxi also did not hesitate to transform into her 9-tailed fairy fox form. Her 9 flaming tails danced in the air as she charged forward with the fire god's seal in her hand. The seal's light soared into the sky, and it was unknown how much power was hidden in her petite body. Don't come over. Lin Muyu suddenly opened her hand, and flames surged in her palm. The 7 glorious stars transformation that had already been formed instantly dissipated, and was replaced by the technique of using fire to control the sword. The corner of his mouth curved in a smile. In the distance, there was an almost inaudible whistling sound. It was the demon noise saber. What? Ji Luo, who had been concentrating on the purple thunder apocalypse, suddenly trembled. A gust of air attacked him from the void, and he hurriedly used his remaining strength to block it. However, he did not expect that he would not be able to block it at all. The invisible saber pierced through the imprisonment of the Grandmaster demonic energy with a whoosh, aiming directly for his neck. Even though Ji Luo had been through hundreds of battles, he had never seen such a strange attack method. He hurriedly tilted his head backwards in an attempt to dodge this attack. Who would have thought that Lin Muyu would open her palm and lightly clench it? The flying demon noise saber immediately changed its trajectory and flew past Ji Luo's throat with a pu sound. Blood splattered as the sharp blade cut open Ji Luo's throat. Blood gushed out, and Ji Luo hurriedly withdrew his arms. The purple thunder apocalypse in the air also dissipated like the 7 glorious stars transformation. Pa! Lin Muyu caught the returning demon noise saber and gently put it back into the saber pouch at her waist. Her eyes were calm as she looked at Ji Luo without saying a word. This demon, whose cultivation was higher than hers, had died humbly under a hidden weapon attack. You! Ji Luo spat out a mouthful of blood as he desperately clutched his neck. Blood seeped through the gaps between his fingers. His voice was somewhat muffled, filled with disbelief and anger. Despicable beast, you actually used a hidden weapon to attack me, you, Lin Muyu said lightly. The demon race schemed to get out of the Heaven's Bridge Gorge and ambushed Winter Frost City without us knowing, killing 100,000 members of my Yangwei Legion. Are you not despicable? You. Ji Luo's eyes were bloodshot as he took a few steps back. He could no longer even hold the sword in his hand. As his life energy drained away, the magic battle chi whirlpool in his energy sea slowly flew up and condensed into a small demon spirit orb. But with a pa sound, Ji Luo forcibly grabbed the demon spirit orb that leaked out of his body. His face was twisted and hideous as he laughed. I heard that human cultivators can refine the demon spirit orb of a high-level celestial race and turn their divine power into their own. But I, Ji Luo, will not give my demon spirit orb to you even if I have to destroy it. Ha 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 ha. Ji Luo laughed maniacally as he gathered the last of his strength. The demon spirit orb in his hand crackled with lightning. The lightning flashed at an unprecedented speed. The surrounding air surged, blowing dirt, leaves, and rocks in all directions. Lin Muyu, Qin Yin, and Tang Xiaoxi could barely open their eyes. They could only watch as this high-level demon self-destructed. Wang, at this moment, the biting cold lightning from the demon spirit orb began to devour Ji Luo's body. His clothes, skin, muscles, and everything else turned to ash under the lightning. The hand holding the demon spirit orb also began to crumble. At this moment, several objects hidden in the cloth bag in front of his chest let out a shrill sound. They turned fiery red, as if they were about to explode at any moment. What's that? Tang Xiaoxi was stunned. Lin Muyu hurriedly shouted, both of you, get behind me and upgrade your battle armor to its strongest state. The two girls appeared behind Lin Muyu while he held the dragon spirit sword horizontally in front of his chest. The walls of the golden gourd flew up with a hum and expanded, protecting him and the two girls behind him. At the same time, the power of the stars circulated and quickly condensed into the star lotus armor, adding another layer of protection. Just as Lin Muyu finished all this, the thing hidden in Ji Luo's chest suddenly exploded. Boom! The force of the attack was overwhelming. With just one attack, Lin Muyu's gourd wall was shattered into pieces. Following that was the star lotus armor. Amidst the violent impact, the star lotus armor was destroyed like rotten wood. Only the heavens knew what was inside Ji Luo's chest that could cause such a powerful explosion. A huge azure mushroom cloud rose from the mountain, the shockwaves surging in all directions. Lin Muyu bore the brunt of the attack. The dragon spirit sword in her hand let out an angry roar. The holy beast soul had decided to protect its master. The dragon snake beast soul roared and stood in front of its master to take the brunt of the impact. However, the dragon snake beast soul let out a miserable howl as it was destroyed in another wave of explosion. There was even a loud clang. A terrifying scene unfolded. The dragon spirit sword, a 4th grade holy rank longsword, was actually destroyed, shattering into crystal fragments. However, it was also the dragon spirit sword that allowed Lin Muyu to escape death. With Ji Luo as the core, the shockwave from the explosion struck 3 times in a row, causing a fatal impact to everything within a 50-meter radius. Towering trees were turned to dust, and even rocks were turned to stone dust. The ground was also blasted into a crater several meters deep. Ugh, the blood in Lin Muyu's body churned. She finally couldn't help but kneel on the ground and spit out a mouthful of blood. You! Mu! Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi supported her from both sides. I'm fine, Lin Muyu shook her head, desperately using her battle chi to stabilize the surging blood energy in her body. Help me over, I want to see just what kind of thing could cause such an explosion. Even Ji Luo shouldn't have this kind of ability. Okay. The two girls supported Lin Muyu and walked over. They stepped into the deep crater, only to find that Ji Luo's body had already been reduced to ashes. The divine weapon lay quietly on the ground, undamaged. There were words engraved on the blade, Xing Chen. It was written in clerical script, but it seemed to be slightly different from the Sword Elder's Xing Chen sword. Lin Muyu gently lowered her body and grasped the hilt of the Xing Chen sword. Immediately, a familiar aura flowed into her body and seemed to form a sound in her high. Her knees buckled and she knelt in front of the Xing Chen sword. Tears flowed from her eyes and she began to cry bitterly. This is. Qin Yin said softly. Lin Muyu's tears spilled into the soil. She closed her eyes and sobbed in a low voice. This group of bastards, they recast the Xing Chen sword and refined the sword elder's soul into the sword spirit. Bastards, bastards, Tang Xiaoxi's body trembled. She also knew about the sword elder and walked forward. Her small hand supported Lin Muyu's shoulder and comforted, Mu, you killed Ji Luo and took revenge for the sword elder. No. Lin Muyu's eyes were unprecedentedly fierce. She said sternly, I will definitely investigate this. No matter who recast this sword, I will not let them reincarnate. At this time, Qin Yin found a small piece of something in the ruins of the pit. She raised her hand and said, look at this. Lin Muyu calmed her chaotic emotions and walked forward to take a look. She found that Qin Yin was holding a round ornament that seemed very familiar. What is this? I remember this. Tang Xiaoxi reached into her bosom and took out a crystal coin. It glowed faintly under the moonlight. It was a magic crystal coin of the demon race. This round steel ornament was the ornament around the magic crystal coin. Lin Muyu took the coin and carefully felt it in her hand. She said, that's right, it was this thing that caused the explosion, magic crystal. Qin Yin's mouth opened and closed. She murmured, the explosive power of a magic crystal is so terrifying. Chapter 462. Holding the star sword, a faint echo came from the sword. It seemed that the sword elder's spirit had recognized Lin Muyu. However, he could not speak, and would never speak. Holding the sword tightly in her arms, Lin Muyu murmured with tears in her eyes, Sword elder, I will avenge you. In the meantime, fight side by side with me. As she spoke, she put the star sword back into its scabbard. It actually fit perfectly with the dragon spirit sword scabbard. Fortunately, the dragon spirit's sword had been destroyed, and Lin Muyu had an even more powerful sword. Lulu's voice came from Hi, brother, according to my estimation, this star sword was recast with the spiritual power of the stars in the myriad world. With the addition of the sword elder's unyielding spirit, it has broken through the saint rank and reached the level of a demigod weapon. However, the sharpest weapon in the Shattered Cauldron realm is the first rank of the saint rank. There is no such thing as a demigod weapon, so there is no way to specifically classify the star sword. Then don't classify it. Lin Muyu smiled sadly and said, sometimes, the rank is not important. Lulu was just an intelligent AI, and did not understand the emotional changes of Lin Muyu. She said, okay, brother, if you need Lulu, just call me. At this moment, in the night, a roar came from the west of the cloud ridge. At the same time, through the spiritual pulse technique, one could feel a tyrannical aura rapidly approaching. This aura was very familiar. Lin Muyu could not help but sharpen her eyes and said, Xiao Yin, Xiao Shi, the demon race is here. It's the armor demon army. Armor demon? Qin Yin was stunned. Why would the armor demon come to the Heaven's Pivot Province? It's hard to say. Tang Xiaoxi said, the Heaven's Pivot Province and the southern border of the Tongtian Province are only separated by a cloud ridge. Although most of the cloud ridge is a steep cliff, there are still some small paths. At least it is not difficult for small groups of armor demons to come here. Yes. Lin Muyu nodded, about 700 or 800 armor demons are coming. They must be coming for the star sword and Tao Wu. Let's hide first. My chi was seriously damaged just now, so I can't fight the demon race head-on. Well, I'll carry you. Qin Yin wrapped Lin Muyu's arms around her slender, snow-white neck and jumped dozens of meters away. Lin Muyu gave a wry smile and hugged Qin Yin tightly in her arms. Under the moonlight, feeling Lin Muyu's movement, Qin Yin could not help blushing and blushing. After a few more ups and downs, she took Lin Muyu and Tang Xiaoxi to hide behind a shrub. Behind them was a steep cliff. Even if the demon race came, they would not notice them. Sitting quietly behind the bushes, Lin Muyu had an incomparably wide field of vision. She was constantly healing her internal injuries with her combat energy circulation while staring at the battlefield in the distance. Although this antiquity spiritual beast was covered in wounds, it was not dead yet. The people of Ice Extreme Sect and Giant Rock Sect were still fighting bitterly. Moreover, they were not the only ones. The Pavilion of Chivalry from the South Ridge had also made a move. Approximately 1,000 people from the Pavilion of Chivalry were lying dormant in the southern part of the forest. Not only that, there was also an army. That's right, it was the Imperial Army. There were about 2,000 of them, and they all wore the purple Yinghua emblem. They were from the inner Qi County of Heaven's Pivot Province. The leader was a deputy Chiliarch. He held a long saber in his hand and led his men to hide in the forest. Looking at the raging flames and the battlefield in the forest from afar, he could not help but sneer, these cultivators really don't want to live. They even dared to challenge such a terrifying spiritual beast. Beside him, a counselor with a mustache said with a smile, General Yuan, we have 2,000 people here this time, plus 2 arrow boxes and steel arrows tempered with white diamond that were secretly transported from Lanyan City. We don't have to rush. As long as we wait for these practitioners to die, we can kill this huge beast with 1 round of arrows from the arrow boxes. At that time, a 400-year-old Tao Wu, as long as we bring its head to Lanyan City to ask for a reward, it will be enough for a general to be promoted by 3 levels and become a national general. Maybe we can even become a commander. The lieutenant general could not help but smile, his eyes full of pride. He said, don't worry, Counselor Zhou. If I, Yuan Zhu, can become a national general, I will definitely recommend you to be a military counselor of Zhe Tian Palace and become a popular man around His Highness. Then, thank you very much for your kindness, General Yuan. In a short period of time, more than 20,000 people had hidden in this forest. They couldn't help but sigh with emotion. The charm of the stellar sword had actually reached such a level. Now that the stellar sword had disappeared from everyone's sight, it seemed that everyone could only lock their target on the ancient vicious beast Swan and I. Everyone wanted to plunder the Swan Knee's spirit stones. Everyone wanted to obtain even an inch of Swan Knee's fur. That would be enough for them to show off to their descendants for a lifetime. Moreover, the Empire revered martial arts. With the spirit stones of a 400-year-old Swan and I, they could indeed exchange not only for fame and fortune, but also for a lifetime of glory. Behind the bushes, Qin Yin widely opened her beautiful eyes and said, there's an army of the Empire over there. I don't know whose army they are. Should we inform them that the demons are coming? It's too late. Lin Muyu pointed at the dark shadows running across the mountain under the starlight and said, if I'm right, the target of these armor demons is Tao Wu or Star's sword. It's meaningless for them to kill 1,000 or 2,000 more soldiers of the Empire. It seems that the demons have arranged a lot of spies in Heaven's Pivot Province. Otherwise, they wouldn't have sent the Armor Demon Legion here so quickly. Then what should we do now? Qin Yin asked worriedly. Don't worry. The officers of the Empire are not fools. Lin Muyu said in a low voice, as long as they are not fools, they will wait until Tao Wu falls down. That's enough for them to escape. Yes. Lin Muyu looked at the battle in the distance and said, the people of the chivalry school are also here. They're all Qin Yi's men from Lingnan. I don't know what they're planning. If Tao Wu really falls down, Shao Yin will kill our way there and snatch Tao Wu's spiritual stones from the chivalry school. By the way, apart from spiritual stones, what else is valuable on Tao Wu? Qin Yin pouted. You're still thinking about money. Tang Xiaoxi couldn't help but smile. She patted Lin Muyu's shoulder and said, Mu, I told you to read more, but you just wouldn't listen. It's obvious that you didn't carefully study Chu's Book of 10,000 Beasts when you were training with him. The Book of 10,000 Beasts clearly recorded that Tao Wu's entire body is a treasure. Tao Wu's horn, when ground into powder, is an excellent healing medicine. Its fur is hard and resistant to water and fire, making it a treasure for making leather armors. Tao Wu's bones can also be used as medicine. In addition, Tao Wu's meat contains excellent spiritual energy. Practitioners who eat Tao Wu's meat can improve their cultivation. Also, Tao Wu's tail is said to be condensed from the heavenly realm's divine metal. For someone like you who knows how to forge weapons, this kind of divine metal should be a dream. I see, Lin Muyu smiled. If that's the case, then we're determined to get this by then. You too can eat the meat, but the divine metal in its tail is mine. Qin Yin smiled with her dimples. Tao Wu's body is so huge, its meat is enough for many people to eat. Xiao Shi and I can't finish it. And, be careful, the demons are about to enter the battlefield. Yes, Lin Muyu tried his best to circulate his energy to calm the surging blood in his body. He did not want to watch the human cultivators around by and being slaughtered like this. Roar roar roar, the roars of the armor demons mixed with the roars of Lao Ai, but the practitioners around Lao Ai didn't notice it at all. Only when an armor demon's spear pierced through the chest of a hall leader with a puff sound did they realize it. What's that? The leader of Giant Rock's sect, Ouyang Qing, looked angrily at the black mass of things behind him, but the other party didn't answer him. Instead, they rushed past him while roaring. The pitiful disciples of Giant Rock's sect were massacred in the blink of an eye. Ouyang Qing roared and activated his rock strength. After killing 3 armor demons, he was hit by a heavy hammer and fell into the messy grass, spitting blood. The demons are here. The demons are here. No one knew who shouted, but the surrounding cultivators all panicked. No one was stupid, and no one was willing to deal with Tao Wu at this time. One by one, they turned around and ran. Tao Wu roared angrily, and a huge flaming palm fell into the group of armor demons, directly trampling several armor demons to death. Another sharp claw swept out, and 2 armor demons were smashed into pieces. Even the powerful demons seemed so humble in front of an ancient spiritual beast. Thus, Tao Wu wantonly slaughtered without distinguishing between friend and foe, while the demons chased after the cultivators. If there were no surprises, this group of armor demons was summoned by Ji Luo. Unfortunately, before the armor demons arrived, Ji Luo was defeated by Lin Muyu and self-destructed. As a result, this group of armor demons was like a dragon without a leader, and with their low intelligence, they became the shit-stirrers of this forest. However, this also made Lin Muyu feel relieved. As long as the number of armor demons was exhausted, then they only needed to be careful when dealing with the human cultivators. No one knew how terrifying the human heart was. Perhaps some people would not hesitate to commit regicide for the sake of a Tao Wu's spiritual stone. After all, in this world, the heavens and earth were important, the king was important, and so was their conscience. But none of them were as important as one's own wealth. If one did not look out for oneself, heaven and earth would destroy them. No matter which plane one was in, this was an iron law. Lao Ai's body was already covered in flames, burning wherever he went. It was late autumn, so the withered leaves in the forest were ignited, burning all over the mountains and plains. Many people with low cultivation bases ran away. In fact, their own lives were more important. Don't run, get into formation. Su Yi, the head of the Ice Extreme sect, shouted, holding his blood-stained sword, "Ice spiral formation, block these demons for me. Kill them all, damn it. I don't believe that these lowly beasts dare to abuse their power in the territory of our empire." A group of Ice Extreme sect disciples held their swords in front of their chests, forming a formation. Streams of ice energy enshrouded the formation. Lin Muyu could clearly feel that the so-called ice spiral array was a kind of array that allowed energy to be exchanged and complemented each other. Moreover, these people all cultivated the law of ice. Hence, under the principle that 11 was greater than 2, this array was able to gather all the energy together, making it extremely powerful. "Draw your swords," Su Yi shouted. The 3 disciples in front of the array formation waved their swords together. Hua hua hua, 3 mysterious ice sword chis sprayed out, directly bombarding dozens of armor demons into ice cubes, causing them to shatter and die. Powerful. If all human cultivators could serve the Empire, then the Empire's army would probably defeat the demon race soon. As Lin Miyu thought to herself, she could not help but shake her head with a self-deprecating smile. These cultivators claimed to be otherworldly experts, and their only goal was to cultivate and ascend to godhood. Why would they be willing to join the Empire's army and participate in this secular war? The aura in his body gradually calmed down. He raised his hand to grasp the star, slowly pulled it out, and said, "Shao Yin, Shao Shi, let's get ready." Tao Wu has killed so many people, his spiritual power is almost exhausted. Yes. The two beauties nodded obediently. Chapter 463. Clang. The crisp sound of a sword being unsheathed rang out from the depths of the forest. An old man gently lifted the hood of his cloak that covered his face. His aged face was covered with scars that extended all the way to his neck. He narrowed his eyes, which shone with a shrewd light. He said calmly, "House of Chivalry, get ready to act. Kill Lao Ai before the Imperial Army does. Bring Lao Ai back to Iha country and hand him over to the Commander-in-Chief. Every one of you will receive a lifetime of glory." A group of chivalry rangers in black robes lifted their cloaks and unsheathed their swords. The badges on their chests shone brightly under the moonlight. There were gold, silver, and bronze badges, but most of them were iron and white. The Jin Zun Rangers had mobilized a total of 12 people and 74 silver supremes. The long-bearded old man wore the badge of a Grand Tour envoy. He was the leader of this group of chivalry rangers. Grand Tour envoy Zhang He. Jin Zun, who was holding a sharp broadsword, frowned and said, "Tao Wu is still able to fight. Are we really going to act now? In my opinion, why don't we wait until the Imperial Army makes their move?" "No." Zhang He shook his head slowly and said, "There is no time to wait. If the Imperial Army gets Tao Wu's spirit stone first, it will be too difficult for us to take it back from thousands of soldiers. Also, the divine weapon has been stolen by a mysterious person. We can only fight for this divine beast spirit stone. Otherwise, how are we going to explain it to His Highness Qin Huan?" "Yes, I have no objections." Zhang He raised his head, his eyes filled with the desire to fight. This 71-year-old old general's face was already pale, but as the Grand Tour envoy of the Pavilion of Chivalry in the Lincoln province, he had no choice but to bite the bullet and seize this very important spirit stone for the Iha country. Perhaps a 400-year-old spirit stone from a mythological beast would be able to make Luo Lan agree to help the Iha country again. Drops of rain fell on the armor of the soldiers in the forest. Yuan Zhu's eagle eyes were fixed on the movements in the forest in the distance. He gritted his teeth and said, "That old fox Zhang He has made his move. Brothers, get ready to go. Take up a spear and shield formation and push forward. The motley crew of the Chivalry Pavilion is no match for the Imperial Army." "Yes." The densely packed Imperial soldiers raised their shields in front of their chests and hid their faces behind the shields as they pushed forward. They were well trained, and the military strength of the border troops was indeed well deserved. Russell, Lin Muyu, Qin Yin, and Tang Xiaoxi rushed down from the mountain range with her black combat boots stepping on the dewy weeds. She rushed down from the mountain range with Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi in tow. In front of them, Tao Wu was still wreaking havoc, spewing flames into the crowd. At the same time, it raised its head and let out an angry roar. Under the illumination of the flames, Tao Wu was covered in wounds after killing thousands of human cultivators. Its fur was densely covered in arrows and bullet holes, and blood flowed endlessly. All of a sudden, Tao Wu's front claws swept out like lightning and tore 3 disciples of the Ice Extreme sect to pieces with a bang. Streams of blood-red light swept out and shattered the bodies of dozens of people behind them. It was an irresistible realm attack. Most of the disciples of the Ice Extreme sect were in the human realm or earth realm, so they could not resist it at all. "Block it for me." Su Yi spat out a mouthful of blood and retreated. With his cultivation, he could not compete with Tao Wu at all. He could not even block its attack. He could only ask for help and shouted, "Brother Ouyang, it's up to you now." Dozens of meters away, Ouyang Qing, the leader of the giant rock sect, punched Tao Wu's abdomen with his iron fists. His body was in the air, and waves of rock energy surged. In terms of cultivation, he might be above Su Yi. However, the moment Ouyang Qing landed on the ground, he suddenly felt an awe-inspiring aura fall on his head. When he looked up, he only saw a giant palm falling from the sky. It was Tao Wu's attack. Ah! After a scream, Ouyang Qing was smashed into meat paste by Tao Wu's palm. A blood-red vortex surged out from where he stood, forcing the people of the giant rock sect to retreat again and again. It turned out that the number of cultivators was not an absolute advantage. Nearly 10,000 cultivators surrounded Tao Wu and fought in a chaotic battle, but they ended up in a tragic end. Nearly half of them were killed. That beast, Su Yi's face turned pale. "We can't hold on anymore. Retreat, all disciples of the Ice Extreme sect, follow me and retreat." "Yes, sect leader." Almost everyone's faces were stained with blood. At this moment, under the moonlight, 3 figures flew over. They were Lin Muyu, Qin Yin, and Tang Xiaoxi. Looking up at Tao Wu's giant body, Lin Muyu felt the terror of a divine beast's power for the first time. She could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. Raising her hand, she pulled out the star sword on her back and infused it with battle energy. The star sword suddenly shone brightly. The sword light shone brightly, reflecting off Lin Muyu's star god binding chains. Su Yi saw everything clearly. His eyes fell on the star sword. He narrowed his eyes and asked, "Little girl, who are you? How did you get this divine weapon?" Lin Muyu still looked up at the divine beast Tao Wu and said, "What, you still want to snatch the divine weapon from me at this time?" "You," Su Yi's voice turned cold. "Looking at your young age, with your cultivation, you are no match for Tao Wu. Run for your life." "No, I want to try." Lin Muyu let out a low roar. Suddenly, her body was shrouded in brilliant battle energy. 9 god-binding chains circled around her. The majestic and inviolable aura stunned everyone. In the next moment, Lin Muyu had already dashed out. Her body turned into a stream of light and rushed towards Tao Wu's wounded body. She raised the star sword and leaped nearly 20 meters into the air. Taking advantage of the momentum, she slashed the divine beast's neck, first appearance of stars. Bang! With a loud bang, the star sword was extremely sharp. It cut through Tao Wu's fur and tore open a 1-meter-long wound. However, it did not seem to hurt its throat. Lin Muyu's body was in the air. Suddenly, she raised her palm towards the ground. The golden gourd vines quickly flew up. Using the flexibility of the gourd vines, Lin Muyu stopped in the air for a short while. Her right hand gripped the longsword tightly and suddenly slashed several times. Tao Wu's blood gushed out and quickly dyed Lin Muyu's robe red. Su Yi was dumbfounded. How could he have imagined that this young man could be so powerful? Roar! After receiving such a heavy blow, Tao Wu let out a furious roar. He crossed his palms and swept them horizontally, sending a domineering attack straight towards Lin Muyu's body. 7 luminaries holy gourd. The golden gourd's wall suddenly crossed in front of Lin Muyu's chest, and the star lotus armor wrapped around Lin Muyu's body. Bang! Under this bloody blow, Lin Muyu felt as if her body was about to be torn apart. Her whole body was knocked back dozens of meters by Tao Wu's divine power. She fell to the ground in a rather embarrassing manner and spat out a mouthful of blood. A divine beast with a lifespan of more than 20,000 years was indeed not something an ordinary person could fight alone. On the other side, a golden light shone brightly. Qin Yin unsheathed her Zine sword, and with the god-binding chains circling around her, she dashed straight towards Tao Wu. Tang Xiaoxi also transformed into a 9-tailed fairy fox. 9 beautiful fiery tails danced behind her. She stepped on the void and rushed straight towards Tao Wu's head. Suddenly, she put her palms together and stopped in the air. Her beautiful eyes were filled with a mesmerizing light. A golden light flashed in her eyes, and suddenly, beams of golden light shot down from the sky and landed on Tao Wu's body, God's seal. Boom, 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 the God's seal, which was full of destructive power, smashed on Tao Wu's back again and again. The divine beast howled in pain. It could barely stand with its 4 claws, and its body was on the verge of collapsing. In terms of the destructive power of martial arts, it seemed that Tang Xiaoxi's God's seal was completely above the star arts and the dragon slayer arts. Puff! The Zine sword suddenly pierced into Tao Wu's ribs. The golden light of the god-binding chains faintly shone out from Tao Wu's body. Qin Yin stepped on Tao Wu's fur and slashed down with the Zine sword. She forcefully tore open a large hole in Tao Wu's ribs, and one could almost see the divine beast's internal organs. Roar, roar, under the double pain, Tao Wu roared incessantly. A blood-red light shot up into the sky, as if it was tearing the night apart. Then, beams of golden light shot down, and time seemed to stop. Not good. Lin Muyu shouted, "Be careful, this is the power of a domain." Thousands of rays of light pierced through the clouds and fell down, shining on Lin Muyu and the others. It also shone on the House of Chivalry and the Imperial Army. The entire forest was covered by Tao Wu's power, absolute domain. Only a divine beast could use this power, absolute domain. Everyone in the forest slowed down. Zhang He and the rest of the House of Chivalry members were moving at a slower pace, while Yuan Zhu and the rest who were carrying their shields were moving at a slower pace. Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi landed on the ground one after another, their bodies swaying slightly, and they could not move. An invisible pressure descended from the sky, agitating the blood and qi in Lin Muyu's body. In an instant, Lin Muyu felt as if the energy in her qi sea was about to explode. The pressure of an absolute dominion far surpassed that of a Saint Realm expert. Use the pressure of the sacred domain to resist. Tang Xiaoxi hurriedly said. Lin Muyu and Qin Yin raised their battle qi together, almost betting their entire life's worth of cultivation on this moment. Not far away, the people from the Giant Rock sect and Ice Extreme sect suddenly exploded. That's right, the blood qi of these people were all suppressed to the head by the power of the absolute domain. Then, from the head, they began to explode, dying a horrible death. Pu, piu, piu, streams of blood splattered in the forest, as if flowers of death were blooming in a miserable manner. Tang Xiaoxi's face turned red from the surging blood qi, and her body trembled slightly. She used all of her cultivation to resist the pressure of the absolute domain, and the fire fox on her shoulder also let out a jia jia sound. Just when Tang Xiaoxi was about to be unable to resist the absolute domain, the fire fox's tail suddenly exploded with a peng sound, and actually gave birth to another tail. A two-tailed fire fox, just as Qin Han had said. Woo, woo, Qin Yin's face turned red, and her pair of beautiful eyes were filled with unwillingness. The blood in her body began to boil violently. The blood of the true dragon, the bloodline of the Qin clan. 9 true dragon god-binding chains madly danced around her body, letting out bursts of dragon roars. The speed of the chains became faster and faster, actually forming a powerful storm. Peng! After Tang Xiaoxi, Qin Yin also broke free from the suppression of the absolute domain. The two girls looked at Lin Muyu together. Chapter 464. Bang! The god-binding chains in front of Lin Muyu suddenly exploded. In a desperate situation, the god-binding chains self-destructed in order to protect its owner. The explosion of the first god-binding shackles caused the surrounding grass and stones to fly into the air. Immediately after, the second god-binding shackles exploded. One after another, all 9 god-binding shackles exploded. Qin Yin stood there in a daze, unable to help. Tang Xiaoxi's eyes were also filled with tears as she watched Lin Muyu lose the god-binding chains that she had worked so hard to obtain. However, the sharp sword was enshrouded in golden starlight. Lin Muyu slowly raised his head and looked at Bai An fiercely. Bai An's brown eyes stared back at him mercilessly as if mocking him. Ha! With a shout, Lin Muyu raised the star sword horizontally. The tip of the sword seemed to be pointing in a certain direction. The golden starlight shards that filled the forest gathered together. Those were the shattered god-binding chains. In the blink of an eye, the shards of the god-binding chains attracted each other, forming ancient runes that floated in the air. In less than 10 seconds, the golden ancient runes gathered together, forming a giant sword of light that was at least 20 meters long in the direction the stars were pointing at. In the next moment, the walls of the gourd around Lin Muyu quickly disintegrated and turned into golden armor that attached to the sword. Golden vines extended from the handle of the sword and wrapped around Lin Muyu's hand. Martial Soul Fusion, success. This sword-type martial soul hovered around the starlight sword. It was a new martial soul, one that had never existed in this world. The fusion of the 7 luminaries' holy gourd and the starlight god-binding chains. Absolute power flowed from her martial soul into her arm, and Lin Muyu's heart instantly lightened up. With just a light breath, she broke free from Tao Wu's absolute domain. Holding the giant sword in her hand, she stepped into the void and soared into the sky. Her face was filled with anger, and she said, "You killed so many humans, it's worth it even if you die." The 20-meter-long longsword martial spirit descended from the sky, and with a puchi sound, regardless of whether the Tao Wu was willing or not, it forcibly chopped off its huge head. Bang! Blood gushed out. Bai An's protective upstanding chi couldn't withstand a single blow from Lin Muyu's martial soul fusion. Holding the sword martial soul in her hand, Lin Muyu took a deep breath. She was shocked. So powerful, the martial soul fusion was really powerful. It was far stronger than the 7 luminaries' holy gourds 11. This 11 was not 2, it was at least 5 times stronger. Under the control of Lin Muyu's mind, her martial soul slowly shrank until it was 2 to 3 times the size of her stellar sword. Then, she could no longer shrink it any further. Lin Muyu leaped up, and with a flash of her sword, she cut open Bai An's skull. She took out a scorching 400-year-old Bai An spirit stone and stuffed it into her cosmos sack. Then, she smiled at the 2 astonished girls and asked, "Little Een, little Shi, what happened to you two?" Qin Een stared at the martial soul hovering around Lin Muyu's sword and said, "This martial soul is so powerful." Tang Xiaoxi nodded and said, "It is indeed very powerful. This should be a new martial soul that isn't recorded in the martial soul law of the sanctum, right? Mu Mu, quickly give this new martial soul a name." Name? Lin Muyu raised her hand to look at the martial soul and said, "Then, let's call it Big Treasure Sword." Big Treasure Sword? Qin Een giggled and said, "It sounds a little strange." "It's alright, it's more appropriate." At this time, Lin Muyu suddenly felt a sense of emptiness in her soul. She quickly dispersed the Big Treasure Sword martial soul and returned to the 7 luminaries' holy gourd and the Big Treasure Sword martial soul. Only then did the emptiness disappear. It seemed like Qin Han was right. Martial soul fusion relied heavily on the soul. An ordinary person's soul couldn't provide spiritual energy for a long time. Shoo! He heaved a sigh of relief and looked at the corpses and bodies scattered everywhere in the forest. Apart from himself, Qin Een, and Tang Xiaoxi, no one else was spared. They had all died under Lao Ai's absolute domain. He couldn't help but sigh with emotion and said with a smile, "Everyone came here for the divine weapon, but unexpectedly, a divine beast appeared. In the end, almost everyone died here." Qin Een giggled and said, "Why are you still sighing? It's almost time to refine Tao Wu's beast spirit. You are already at the peak of the first heaven of the Saint Realm. Tao Wu's powerful beast spirit will definitely help you break through and step into the Holy King realm." Without hesitation, Lin Muyu stabbed the star into the soil in front of her. Holding the sword hilt with both hands, the crafting cauldron flew out in the form of energy, sucking in all the wild beasts around Bai An's head and slowly refining it. Woo! the violent spiritual power almost instantly overwhelmed Lin Muyu's body. After all, it was a spirit beast with a lifespan of more than 20,000 years. The enormous spiritual power was not something that ordinary people's Qi Si and Yi Si could bear. Fortunately, Lin Muyu had the help of the crafting cauldron, so he wouldn't be devoured by Tao Wu's beast spirit. Strands of fiery red beast spirit were refined in the crafting cauldron like ribbons, then seeped into Lin Muyu's Qi Si and Yi Si like a trickle, becoming a part of his body for him to use. This process was very long. Lin Muyu stood there, his body motionless. His expression was uncertain, sometimes painful, sometimes happy, and sometimes tormented. Qin Yin worriedly held the purpling sword and stood by his side, guarding him like a goddess of war. Tang Xiaoxi led a few warhorses back and patrolled the surroundings, driving away those who tried to get close. After nearly 2 hours of refining, and after 6 consecutive backlashes from Tao Wu's beast spirit, Lin Muyu finally refined part of the spirit core. Rustle, amidst the almost inaudible sound, Tao Wu's spirit core turned into strands of fiery red spiritual power and seeped into the god-binding chains and 7 luminaries' holy gourd. The 2 martial souls greedily absorbed it and immediately obtained 2 of Tao Wu's abilities, deterrence, which was absorbed by the god-binding chains. The dragon blood battle shield, which was absorbed by the 7 luminaries' holy gourd, greatly increased its defense. Lin Muyu summoned the 7 luminaries' holy gourd excitedly. With a soft chant in her heart, the walls of the gourd quickly turned into a huge golden shield on her arm. There were layers of tortoiseshell and dragon patterns on the shield. This was the 10th ability of the 7 luminaries' holy gourd, the dragon blood battle shield. It was almost a new ability of the god-binding chains. It could intimidate the opponent's soul during an attack, which was equivalent to directly attacking the opponent's soul. For those with weaker souls, it was absolutely fatal. Lin Muyu would have to verify this in future battles. In the air, strands of Tao Wu's beast spirit were dispersing. Lin Muyu secretly sighed. Her cultivation was limited, so she couldn't completely refine Tao Wu's beast spirit for the time being. Even after 4 hours, she had only refined a third of it. Most of it had already dissipated. However, it was actually not easy for a mortal to refine so much of it. At this time, the sky was already slightly brightening. Lin Muyu felt refreshed all over. The fighting energy circulating in her body had never been stronger before. This could only mean one thing: she had stepped into the second sky of the Saint Realm, the Holy King Realm. The Holy King Realm was an extremely rare existence even in the entire continent. The Holy King Realm was divided into 3 stages: the Holy Grandmaster Realm, the Holy Relic Realm, and the Saint Origin Realm. Each stage was further divided into 4 stages: Initial Stage, Advanced Stage, and Peak Stage. Above that was the Saint Heaven Realm, the 3rd sky of the Saint Realm. In other words, Lin Muyu's cultivation was still 3 major stages and 12 minor stages away from Chu Chu's. He clenched his fist and activated his fighting energy. In an instant, a vigorous crimson fighting energy surrounded his fist. The King Fighting Flame was the unique ability of the Holy King Realm. The King Fighting Flame was many times stronger than the brilliant Sun Fighting Light. On the side, Qin Yin smiled sweetly and said, "Congratulations, you, for stepping into the Holy King Realm." Tang Xiaoxi also rode her horse over and said with a smile, "At this moment, our Mumu has finally surpassed Feng Jixing and Xiang Yu in terms of cultivation for the first time. This is worthy of celebration. When this news spreads back to Lanyan City, it will definitely cause great waves. You are the youngest person in the empire who possesses the King's Fighting Flame. Is that so? The first?" Lin Muyu touched her nose and smiled awkwardly. "Does that mean I can raise my salary?" "No way." Qin Yin smiled and said firmly, "You don't lack money. Why do you need so many Jin Yin coins?" Tang Xiaoxi said seriously, "There are still many cultivators coming from all directions. Although I have driven away many of them, the number of people is still increasing. We should leave this place as soon as possible. Otherwise, they will definitely tease Xiao Yin when they come here." How dare they? The king fighting flame on Lin Muyu's fist became stronger. Qin Yin burst into laughter. She held his wrist and said, "Hurry up and take a look at Lao Ai's corpse. If there's anything that we can take with us, we'll take it with us. If we can't, we'll just treat it as a gift to the cultivators who came later." Okay. The Tao Wu's skin was very hard and could be made into leather armor. Therefore, Lin Muyu cut a lot of it and threw all of it into her heaven-earth pouch and Qin Yin's and Tang Xiaoxi's interspatial pouch. Besides, the Tao Wu's meat contained very rich spiritual power. If a cultivator ate it, it could speed up their cultivation. It was definitely a treasure for a cultivator. Therefore, Lin Muyu cut a lot of Tao Wu's meat and put it into her heaven-earth pouch. When the 3 interspatial pouches were almost full, there was only about half of the Tao Wu's meat left. Lin Muyu stepped on the huge skeleton and arrived at Swan Ni's spine. She abruptly raised her hand and grabbed Swan Ni's spine. Then, with a low grunt, her king's combat flame danced around her body. With her immense strength, she directly pulled Swan Ni's spine out. As expected, the bone had a metallic luster. It was a good material for forging weapons. She swung the star and cut the spine into 7 or 8 pieces. Then, she distributed the pieces to Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi. She only stopped when there was not even an apple in their space bags. In the morning mist, the sound of hooves came from afar. Someone was coming. Chapter 465. The sound of horses' hooves broke the silence of the morning. A group of men clad in armor and carrying banners galloped over on their horses and quickly spread out. Many of them pulled out their weapons and surrounded Lin Muyu, Qin Yin, and Tang Xiaoxi in the middle. Their faces were filled with malicious intent. When they saw the beautiful faces of the 2 beautiful girls, their greed and lust grew even stronger. "Who are these people?" Tang Xiaoxi asked with a frown. Qin Yin quietly placed her palm on her sword and said, "Mercenaries." That's right, they were all mercenaries. There were at least 100 of them, and judging from the sound of hooves, there seemed to be more. Lin Muyu mounted the horse and tied the Qingkuan pouch to her waist. She raised her hand and sheathed star. She looked at the mercenaries around her coldly and stood still, waiting for an opportunity to strike. At this moment, a mercenary with a face full of beard rode forward. He glanced at Tao Wu's huge body, then looked at Lin Muyu, Qin Yin, and Tang Xiaoxi's attire and injuries. He couldn't help but smile. "It seems that the divine beast Tao Wu died in your hands." "Yes, make way. We're leaving," Qin Yin said with a cold face. "You want to leave just like that?" The mercenary leader couldn't help but laugh. "Since you're the ones who killed Tao Wu, you must have some skills. Do you mind showing my brothers what you've got?" Lin Muyu immediately knew that these mercenaries couldn't sense the power of a sanctuary expert, so they didn't know if the 3 of them really had the ability to kill Tao Wu, or if they had killed Tao Wu through trickery. This person was just testing them. If they really didn't have the ability to kill Tao Wu, then they would attack immediately. Clang! Lin Muyu suddenly pulled out her sword and looked at the group of people around her coldly. The group of mercenaries also pulled out their swords and bows. The atmosphere was tense. This sword. The bearded mercenary leader's eyes turned cold. "Kid, this sword is the divine weapon that fell into the human world, isn't it?" "Yes." Lin Muyu didn't deny it. "Very good, very good." The bearded man said twice and shouted, "Captain, the divine weapon is here." Another group of mercenaries came from the forest behind. The leader seemed to be a little familiar. He was about 40 years old, had a fierce face, and had a vicious look in his eyes. He held the reins tightly with both hands and rode his horse under the protection of dozens of people. He stared at Lin Muyu and sneered. "Tell me, how did you get this sword? So many cultivators have died here, and even many people from the Empire's army have died. How did a young boy like you get this sword? Did you take advantage of the fact that everyone died together with Tao Wu to get this sword?" Tang Xiaoxi was curious and couldn't help but laugh. She raised her eyebrows and said, "You middle-aged man, your words are really interesting. We killed Tao Wu and got this sword. What do you mean by taking advantage of the situation? If we really took advantage of the situation to get this sword, would you dare to snatch it?" The smile in the mercenary leader's eyes deepened. He raised his hand and said, "Brothers, I want these two girls alive. Shoot this boy into a hedgehog." Hee, I didn't expect that we, the Scorching Wind mercenary group, would pick up such a big bargain as soon as we arrived in Heaven's Pivot province. Humph, Tao Wu's spirit stones must be in this boy's hands. Get rid of him for me. But be careful, that divine weapon must be powerful. You are the Scorching Wind mercenary group? Lin Muyu suddenly smiled. What's wrong? Have you also heard of the Scorching Wind mercenary group? The mercenary leader said proudly. No. Lin Muyu shook her head. The smile on her face became even more radiant. She smiled and said, "You are the leader of the Scorching Wind mercenary group, Lei Qianhai? Do you still remember the Lin Muyu you wanted to kill 4 years ago?" Lin Muyu? Lei Qianhai's body trembled as he stared fixedly at Lin Muyu's face. The more he looked at this face, the more familiar it became. Compared to the Lin Muyu of the past, this face was less childish and arrogant, but more calm and composed. Lei Qianhai's hands couldn't help but tremble as he said, You're really the commander of the Lanyan City's Brave Dragon Battalion. Lin Muyu? What, you don't recognize me anymore? The killing intent in Lin Muyu's eyes intensified. Don't tell me you have also forgotten that you sent people to kill me and Chuyao? Lei Qianhai urged his horse to retreat several steps. His face was aghast. Suddenly, his expression turned malevolent. He roared, "Attack, kill them all. Leave no one alive. Quick." Around them, tens of sharp arrows shot towards them. Block them. Lin Muyu, Qin Yin, and Tang Xiaoxi formed a defensive formation with their backs against each other. They took out their dragon blood battle shields and instantly, the arrows bounced off the shields. Qin Yin's sacred dragon shield also revolved around her body, deflecting the attacks of the mercenaries. Tang Xiaoxi had it even easier. She used her two-tailed fire fox to blow away the arrows with just the aura of her flames. Lei Qianhai, you still want to leave? Lin Muyu leapt up and charged towards Lei Qianhai like an eagle hunting for its prey. She didn't even use her sword. Instead, she suddenly opened her palm and a dense fiery red Do Qi vortex appeared between her fingers. It was the king's Do Qi. Ah! Lei Qianhai suddenly turned around and swept his long blade horizontally. However, with a dang sound, the blade was actually broken by Lin Muyu's palm. The king's Do Qi was simply invincible against this kind of fine steel weapon. Hua! The 5 fingers pierced through Lei Qianhai's condensed Do Qi with an unstoppable force. In the next moment, she had already grabbed Lei Qianhai's throat and lifted him up from his horse. Lei Qianhai's face flushed red as he looked at the red Do Qi revolving around Lin Muyu's arm in shock. With a trembling voice, he said, Kings. Do Qi, you've stepped into the Holy King realm, that's right. You didn't think that retribution would come so late, did you? Lin Muyu faintly smiled and suddenly exerted strength from her 5 fingers. In an instant, Lei Qianhai's body turned into a pile of ashes that was blown away by the wind. Not a single bone was left. It was already unknown how many innocent people this mercenary leader had killed over the years. However, Lin Muyu was certain that by killing him, she was definitely doing justice for the heavens and eradicating evil for the people. This little bastard killed the leader, kill him. Kill him. The bearded mercenary leader roared in a daze. A group of mercenaries wielding heavy shields quickly rushed forward with spears in their hands. Before they even got close, they had already thrown their spears. The Scorching Wind mercenary group could be considered well-trained to actually know such military tactics. Unfortunately, the spears all bounced off the dragon blood battle shield. Lin Muyu didn't waste much effort. She leapt forward and pulled out the stellar sword. With a sudden shout, the 7 luminaries' immortal gourd and god-binding chains quickly disintegrated and fused into a resplendent golden greatsword that enveloped the stellar sword. Kacha! With a single slash, a group of mercenaries along with their shields were cut into 2 halves. They didn't even have the chance to scream before they died. The power of this slash was extraordinary. It directly killed more than 30 shield-wielding heavy infantry soldiers. The scorching wind mercenaries behind her were all dumbfounded, as if they had seen the Grim Reaper. Lin Muyu stood majestically with the battle flame dancing around her. She looked down at the crowd like a deity and shouted, "What are you waiting for? Or do you think that you are capable enough to deal with 1 holy king and 2 saint masters?" Everyone trembled in fear. The bearded mercenary leader knelt down on one knee and said, We know we were wrong. We hope that Lord Saint King can make an exception, and spare our worthless lives. We were just trying to make a living, that's all." "Is that so?" Lin Muyu sneered coldly, "I don't even want to talk about the dirty things you have done. However, I have no intention of killing all of you today. I am very curious as to why you still dare to attack after hearing my name. Has the Scorching Wind mercenary group never heard of Lin Muyu?" Yes. The bearded man trembled and said, "Commander, you defeated the powerful demon race in the Wildfire Plains. Everyone in the world knows your name, but, our leader, alright, that's enough." Lin Muyu frowned and said, "Since you know my name, then hurry up and leave before I change my mind." "Yes, we will leave, right now." The Scorching Wind mercenary group hurriedly left. How would they dare to ask for Tao Wu's spiritual stones? After all, even if it was 100,000 years old spiritual beast's spiritual stone, they needed to be alive to enjoy it. Swoosh, Lin Muyu shook her arm and the great treasure sword martial spirit slowly dissipated. She let out a sigh and turned around to look behind her. Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi did not kill anyone. They were only protecting themselves. The 2 girls did not have a strong killing intent. In fact, Lin Muyu knew that both Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi were very kind girls. They would not kill anyone unless they had no other choice, even if it was a bad guy. "Xiao Yin, Xiao Shi, let's go. Otherwise, there will be more trouble." "Yes." The 3 of them mounted their horses and galloped away from where Swan Ni's corpse was. Along the way, they could still see an endless stream of cultivators and private armies from various clans rushing over. After all, the temptation of a divine weapon was too great. However, the stars were already sheathed, so these people could not see any clues. At most, they only saw Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi as a feast for the eyes. They did not cause too much trouble. After leaving the forest, a group of people came toward them. It was Yuchi Kai and the others. Young hero Lin Ji. Yuchi Kai also recognized Lin Ji. Are you all right?" he asked with wide eyes. "We're fine. Thank you for your concern, young Master Yuchi." Lin Muyu cupped her fists and smiled. Bai En is simply too powerful. None of us are a match for it, and we were even injured. We won't be staying for long. Young Lord Yuchi, please be careful and pay attention to your safety." "Yes." Yuchi Kai looked at Lin Muyu in confusion. Then I won't send you off." "Many thanks." Lin Muyu led Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi away on their horses. Yuchi Kai watched in a daze as the 3 of them went further and further away. At this time, an old man draped in a cloak said indifferently, "Young master, the divine weapon has probably been taken." "Elderly, why do you say that?" Elderly stroked his beard. The person whom young master called Lin Ji just now, the long sword on his back emitted a very strong sword soul power. It's the highest level of a sacred beast's soul. If there are no accidents, that sword is a divine weapon that everyone is fighting for. What? Yuchi Kai was stunned. Elderly said indifferently, "Young master, should we chase after him and snatch the sword?" Chapter 466. Forget it, Yuchi Kai shook his head gently and said, Actually, I should have thought of it. In the holy temple of Lanyan City, there was also a person who used to call himself Lin Ji. I should have guessed it was him. Elderly was stunned. Young master, are you saying that the lad just now is Lin Muyu of the four heroes of Lanyan City? That's right. A trace of sadness flashed across Yuchi Kai's face and he said, otherwise, who would have the ability to snatch the divine weapon and kill the fierce beast Swan Ni among more than 10,000 practitioners? Elder Li's eyes were cold. Young master, we have nearly 300 people and many of them are experts with extraordinary cultivation. If we use force, Lin Muyu will be at a disadvantage. As long as we snatch that divine weapon, we can definitely make the family rise again. All we need is an order from young master. Forget it. Yuchi Kai's eyes were cold. Can't Elder see it? Lin Muyu has restrained his aura. It is said that he has already entered the ranks of the Holy Region a few months ago. With his talent, I'm afraid he has already comprehended the king's fighting flame and stepped into the Holy King realm. Although we have more people, can we really defeat a Holy King with dual martial souls? Moreover, Elder, did you notice that Lin Muyu is so respectful to the two beauties behind him? Who else in the world can make Marquis Yunling, Lin Muyu, so respectful? Elder Li was shocked. Does young master think that those two girls are Her Highness Qin Yin and Princess Tang Xiaoxi? Other than the two of them, who else has such peerless beauty and unparalleled temperament? Yuchi Kai sighed and said, people like Lin Muyu are destined to be dragons among men. Why should we be enemies with such people? Forget it, forget it. Yuchi Tian and Yuchi Yen are still struggling at death's door in Lanyan City. Since Her Highness the Empress has turned a blind eye to our Yuchi family, we can't make trouble on our own. Then where do we go now? Let's go to the Cloud Ridge and look around. Let's see if we can find anything. Yes. The war horses galloped until midnight, but they did not see any inns along the way. Left with no choice, they could only sleep in the open. Lin Muyu led the horse, identified the convenient location, and entered the dragon-seeking forest with the two beauties. They found a dry place under a cliff and set up a simple tent. The tent was green in color, so it would not be easily discovered. The late autumn night was cold. The cold wind blew through the forest, and the howling of wolves could be heard in the distance. Lin Muyu carried a pile of dry firewood and lit a bonfire. Then she found a military pot in the cosmos sack, poured some water, added oil, salt, soy sauce, and vinegar, and washed some of the Swan Ni's leg meat. According to common sense, this should be the most delicious meat on the Swan Ni's body. After chopping up the meat, she put it into the pot. After cooking it for a while, she could actually see a blue light seeping out of the pot. Sure enough, it was just as the legend said. The meat of the Swan Ni's ancient beast could be regarded as spirit meat. After eating it, it could enhance the cultivation of a cultivator. Lin Muyu was secretly happy. If this was true, the Swan Ni's meat in her cosmos sack, Qin Yin, and Tang Xiaoxi added together would be enough for 3 people to eat for half a year. In any case, the meat would not rot in a different space. If she cultivated diligently in this half a year, she might be able to step into the Saint Origin realm. At the very least, she would at least reach the Saint Trace realm. She still had confidence in this. It smells so good. Qin Yin snuggled up to him and said with a smile. Lin Muyu nodded. After eating the meat soup, Xiao Yin, you should circulate the dragon beheading art repeatedly and see if there is any difference in the cultivation effect compared to usual. Gently caressing Qin Yin's fragrant shoulder, Lin Muyu looked at the jealous Tang Xiaoxi and couldn't help but smile. Xiaoxi's 2 fire foxes also need spiritual energy to improve their cultivation, so we should eat one more. I hope the 3 of us can all step into the God realm together, and even reach the God Emperor realm in the end. Only then will I have the opportunity to use the reincarnation power to take you back to my hometown and experience the life there. Tang Xiaoxi giggled. She put down the knife in her hand, knelt on the ground, and gracefully crawled over to Lin Muyu. She put her hands on Lin Muyu's knees and quietly pressed her breasts on his legs. Smiling, she asked, "Mu, what is your hometown like? Describe it to me and Xiao Yin first." "My hometown," Lin Muyu thought for a moment and said, the country I came from is called China, and the city where my hometown is located is called Shanghai. It is a beautiful city, the roads are especially wide, the buildings are very tall, and the donkeys running on the roads are also very dazzling. We have many friends there, including my father and brother," but, his expression darkened. "But I don't know why I actually came to this world, and my body in the other world should still be in a deep sleep, right? Or perhaps, my body also disappeared. How worried would my father and brother be?" "It's okay." Qin Yin rested her face on his chest and said softly, "If we have the power of reincarnation, we can completely reverse time and return to the moment when you disappeared. Besides, we have eternal life, so it's okay." Lin Muyu looked at the stars in the sky, holding Qin Yin's hand in one hand and Tang Xiaoxi's hand in the other. He said emotionally, "In my world, a man can only love one woman at a time, but, if we really have eternal life, will the two of you still accompany me in 1,000 years or 10,000 years? Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi looked up at him at the same time, their beautiful eyes filled with nostalgia. Qin Yin smiled and said, "Who knows in 1,000 years or 10,000 years? Even if we can't accompany you, we will always like you and love you. 10,000 years, so long." Tang Xiaoxi's eyes were a bit blurred. She suddenly lowered her head and used her face to caress the back of Lin Muyu's hand. She said softly, "Ever since we met in Kathaya City, Xiaoxi has liked you. I don't hide my love for you. I don't care what others think of me, I like you. No one can change that. This is my life, how can I be controlled by others?" Lin Muyu was very touched. He held the two girls' hands tightly and said, "Then we have a promise. After 1,000 years or 10,000 years, we will still be together." "Yes." The two girls nodded at the same time, their eyes full of seriousness. At this time, the fragrance of meat in the soup pot filled the air. Although the Swanee's body was very large, its muscles were very fine. This meat was naturally not ordinary delicious. Lin Muyu took out bowls, one for each person. The two girls chewed slowly while Lin Muyu ate 3 bowls in a row. No matter how much spirit energy the Swanee meat contained, for Lin Muyu, it was a kind of meat that could replenish her strength. Soon, the pot of meat was finished. After drinking water, it was already late at night. The 3 horses were grazing in the valley not far away. It was time for them to sleep. This tent was not big, but it was not small either. After lying down, Lin Muyu's heart was beating like a drum. Although Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi were also sleeping in their clothes, it would be a lie to say that he was not tempted to lie with 2 stunning beauties. As a result, he sat up and cultivated. The dragon forging bone remnant scroll forged new skills and blood vessels. After 1 cycle, Lin Muyu felt a mysterious spirit energy emerge from the depths of her body. This was the spirit energy provided by the Swanee's meat. After the 2nd cycle of the dragon forging bone remnant scroll, the strength of the battle chi in her chi si also seemed to be a lot more tyrannical. The capacity of her chi si was also clearly increased. Sure enough, after eating the Swanee's meat, the effect of cultivation was as much as 4 to 5 times that of normal. Overjoyed, Lin Muyu silently cultivated. On the side, Qin Yin was quietly cultivating the Dragon Slayer art with her eyes closed. Tang Xiaoxi was leaning against the quilt. She didn't know when she had fallen asleep, but the 2-tailed fire fox on her shoulder was constantly jumping. It seemed that it could absorb the spirit energy provided by the Swanee's meat even when its master was asleep. The fire fox's tail gradually grew stronger, which also meant that the power of Tang Xiaoxi's martial soul was also becoming more powerful. After an unknown amount of time, Lin Muyu slowly opened his eyes. The king's battle flame in his chi si had become increasingly vigorous. The cultivation effect was very obvious. But at this moment, an extremely strange feeling of heat rose from the depths of his heart. He was almost unable to close his eyes. His whole body was also covered in sweat. The heat in his body had to be expelled quickly. What was even more strange was that his mind seemed to be quickly losing control. Xiao Yin, he curled up in the quilt, desperately using the king's battle flame to suppress the restlessness in his body. What's wrong, you? Qin Yin lowered her head to look at him. She bent down and moved her face close to his. This was even more incredible. A restlessness that came from the bottom of his heart made Lin Muyu completely unable to calm down. He quickly hugged Qin Yin and kissed her red lips. His palm climbed up to the holy and pure peaks that people yearned for. But Qin Yin let out a whimper and gently pushed him away. She asked, "Big brother, what's wrong with you?" I also don't know. Lin Muyu was a little embarrassed. His face was completely red. It feels like I've been drugged. Qin Yin frowned and said, "What's going on? We're eating the same thing." Lin Muyu let out a whimper. It was even more unbearable. At this moment, Tang Xiaoxi lay on her side in his arms. It was like a long drought meeting sweet dew. Tang Xiaoxi felt that she was being hugged in her sleep. She hurriedly opened her eyes and saw that it was Lin Muyu. It was a false alarm. Just as she was about to go back to sleep, Lin Muyu's scorching breath blew on her face. It was a little abnormal. Ah. Tang Xiaoxi opened her eyes and looked at Lin Muyu's faintly red energy sea. She said, "My God. Mu's energy sea is expanding." "Why, Xiaoxi?" Qin Yin hurriedly asked. "I also don't know. Is it because of the Tao's meat?" Tang Xiaoxi's eyes widened. She said, "It must be. It is said that the Tao's meat is of the fire attribute and it is very violent. After eating it, women can resist it with their purine body, but men can't. So, men who eat the Tao's meat will quickly find a woman, that. She blushed and couldn't go on. Qin Yin looked at Lin Muyu's uncomfortable appearance and instantly blushed. She said, "Then what should we do, Xiaoxi? I, or you, have to help him." Tang Xiaoxi looked at her best friend and said with a smile, "All right, Xiao Yin, don't think too much. Although this kind of hot breath can be vented in that way, there are 10,000 other ways. So, I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you." Hee. Looking at Tang Xiaoxi who was grinning mischievously, Qin Yin couldn't help but smile. She said, "What other way is there? Quickly try it. Brother, you look so uncomfortable, Tang Xiaoxi sat up and helped Lin Muyu up. With a wave of one hand, an indigo seal suddenly appeared in the palm of her hand. She pressed it on Lin Muyu's chi-hai, mind-clearing incantation. Again, Lin Muyu's mind instantly became clear. After opening her eyes, she said faintly. Seeing that he was fine, Qin Yin also felt relieved. But before she had time to rejoice, her heart was in a mess. She asked, "Why did you say, again?" This. Lin Muyu and Tang Xiaoxi fell silent together. They turned their heads together and stared outside the tent like owls who had done something wrong. Chapter 467. After the fifth night watch period, the east was slowly turning bright. The sun was about to break through the horizon. The dawn in the dragon-searching forest was quiet. The forest in late autumn was filled with broken leaves. Among the dense shrubs, a male pheasant with golden feathers walked up to a shrub in a dignified manner. He raised his neck and screeched into the sky, "Oh, oh, 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 oh." After the chirp, it seemed to be very proud of itself. The feathers on its buttocks stood up. It took a deep breath and let out another long chirp. However, before the chirp stopped, there was a sound of wind behind it. A ferocious wolf pounced on it and bit the pheasant's neck into pieces. Blood gushed out, and the chirp stopped abruptly. Lin Muyu opened his sleepy eyes. He didn't know when, but Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi were sleeping soundly in his arms. He looked up at the sky in the distance and squinted his eyes. He was in a dilemma. He didn't know if he should get up and hurry on his way or enjoy the warmth of the two beauties in his arms. At this moment, Qin Yin also woke up and asked, "What's wrong?" A pheasant chirped, but it stopped halfway. "I think it was murdered," Lin Muyu said lightly. Qin Yin sat up and rubbed her beautiful eyes. Then, she stroked her long hair and smiled at Lin Muyu in a dignified manner. She said sweetly, "Good morning, brother Yu." Lin Muyu didn't know how to answer. After a moment of silence, she said, "Good morning, Xiao Yin. By the way, after eating the swanee meat yesterday, how's your cultivation progress?" "It seems like my cultivation is growing very fast." Qin Yin opened her hands gently and silently circulated her strength. Immediately, the true dragon god binding chains appeared in her palms. In the next moment, rays of dazzling fighting energy began to spin. It was the starry fighting aura. Lin Muyu couldn't help but laugh. "Congratulations, Xiao Shi. You've stepped into the middle stage of the first heaven of the Saint Realm. This is the starry fighting aura." Qin Yin was pleasantly surprised. She smiled and said, "I can feel the strength in my body making a breakthrough as well." This trip to the Yunling Mountains was indeed very rewarding. On the side, Tang Xiaoxi slowly woke up and hugged Lin Muyu's left wrist. "The sky isn't completely bright yet. Are you sure you want to get up now?" Lin Muyu said, "We are hiding in the tent. No matter who they are in the dark and we are in the light. Xiao Shi, don't sleep so much. Get up quickly. Let's go back to Lanyan City as soon as possible. Xiao Yin has been away from Lanyan City for so many days. I don't know how Second Duke and Brother Feng are handling the political affairs." "Alright," Lin Muyu opened the tent. There was a little fog in the jungle, but it was not very thick. She started to cook breakfast again. It was still swanee meat. Cultivating was the most important thing. This world was full of all kinds of dangers, and strength was the only way to prove the Tao. Otherwise, if she was not strong enough, no one would listen to her. After a full meal, she tidied up the tent, found 3 warhorses, and galloped out of the dragon-seeking forest. Sitting on the warhorse, she continued to cultivate. After refining the spiritual energy of the swanee meat in her stomach, Tang Xiaoxi would cast a mind-cleansing incantation on her when she felt hot. It seemed that Lin Muyu's cultivation would be inseparable from Tang Xiaoxi soon. At noon on the 7th day, the 3 of them had made great progress in their cultivation. After being replenished by the spiritual energy of the swanee meat, Tang Xiaoxi's advancement was the fastest. At noon, she had already cultivated her fire fox martial soul to 3 tails. She could be said to be the number 1 person in the 7 Seas Tang sect. As for Qin Yin, she continued to cultivate her star jade dough light. In the afternoon, when Lin Muyu had circulated the forging dragon bone remnant scroll for an unknown number of times, the king's dough flame in his qi si became more and more red. Moreover, its intensity also became more and more vigorous. The strength in his body had clearly increased by a level. Needless to say, he had already broken through a small realm. From the initial stage of the Holy Grandmaster realm, he had broken through to the initial stage of the Holy Grandmaster realm. As this realm continued to increase, the power of the king's dough flame would also increase step by step to a new realm. When it was close to evening, a courier house appeared on the official road of the Tsangnan province. Qin Yin cheerfully said, "Many days of eating and sleeping in the open, let's find a courier house to rest in today. And this is the place. It's already dark." "All right." When the 3 of them arrived at the courier house, they saw a group of cavalry galloping towards them from afar. The leader was a man wearing the military insignia of captaincy. He looked to be around 40 years old and had a masculine face. After dismounting from his horse, he said to the courier house worker, "Today, we'll be booking all the rooms and stables in the courier house." Lin Muyu was taken aback. He urged his horse forward and cupped his fists, saying, "General, my 2 cousins and I have also come to this courier house. We've been eating and sleeping in the open for many days. Do you think you can lend us 2 rooms? Captaincy raised his eyebrows. When he saw that Lin Muyu was only an ordinary knight, he couldn't help but draw back the corners of his mouth and said, "Isn't it normal for you knight-errant knights to eat and drink in the open?" "I'm sorry, young man. We'll be booking the entire courier house for today. Here are 10 Jean coins. Consider it your compensation." This. Lin Muyu pushed away his money pouch and said, "General, we were obviously here first." The courier house worker saw that the situation wasn't looking good and hurriedly stepped forward. He whispered into Lin Muyu's ear, "Young hero, you see, the arm is no match for the thigh. It's obvious that this military officer is a high-ranking official. Since he's already given you a way out of this embarrassing situation, don't be so unforgiving. Don't we come out to travel the pugilistic world for the sake of harmony and wealth?" Qin Yin, who was standing behind Lin Muyu, was unhappy. She slapped her horse forward and said, "Why should we give in to him? We want 2 rooms today. He has to give it to us even if he doesn't want to." It was obvious that this captaincy had never seen Qin Yin, the empress. The corner of his mouth immediately curled up and he sneered, "Where did this sharp-tongued little girl come from? Let me tell you, this is a courier house. It's a resting place prepared for the empire's high-ranking officials, nobles, and soldiers. You people who travel the pugilistic world should rest in the taverns in the countryside." Tang Xiaoxi came to Qin Yin's side and asked indifferently, "What's your name?" "What do you mean?" Captaincy narrowed his eyes and said, "Little girl, are you asking for my name? Do you think you're qualified to ask for my name?" Tang Xiaoxi took another look at his emblem and said, "You're from Tianji City in the Seven Seas province? Tell me, what's your name? By right, you should know me." "Huh, how interesting." Captaincy crossed his arms and said proudly, "My name is Lu Zhong, the military governor of Tianji City in the Seven Seas province. My title is Earl Tianji. Are you satisfied now?" Tang Xiaoxi reached into her bosom and took out a token. It was the Tang Sex Iron token. She said, "Lu Zhong, do you recognize this?" Lu Zhong took a look and immediately got off his horse. He knelt on one knee respectfully and said, "General Lu Zhong, greets Princess Shi." "Humph, it's good that you know." Tang Xiaoxi raised her eyebrows and said, "Can you free up 2 rooms for us now?" "Yes, of course." Lu Zhong respectfully cupped his fists and stood up, saying, "Princess, why are you in Sangnan province? Logically speaking, shouldn't you stay in Lanyan City to help Her Highness manage the affairs?" Tang Xiaoxi smiled slightly. "No, my mission now is to come out and play with Her Highness." "Ah." Lu Zhong was stunned. He looked at the noble young lady beside Tang Xiaoxi and couldn't help but tremble. For a moment, he felt that the world was about to collapse. He hurriedly knelt down and cupped his fists. "I, Lu Zhong, deserve to die. Please forgive me, Your Highness." A group of captaincy and kiliarchs from Tianji City knelt down together. Hundreds of people knelt together and shouted, "Long live Your Highness." Qin Yin frowned. She didn't intend to alarm so many people, so she raised her hand and said, "You may rise. There's no need to stand on ceremony. All right, I'm tired. I'm going to rest." "Yes." Lu Zhong nodded and said, "I'll arrange a banquet to welcome Your Highness." As he spoke, Lu Zhong looked at Lin Muyu and said, "Young hero, may I know who you are?" Tang Xiaoxi smiled slightly. Who else would be accompanying Her Highness Qin Yin? Could it be? Lu Zhong hurriedly gave a standard military salute and said, "Lu Zhong, pay my respects to Commander Yu. There's no need to be so polite. Go in and don't let anyone know about Her Highness's situation in Sangnan province. Do you understand, General Lu?" "Yes, I'll keep that in mind." Not long after, almost all the original guests in the post house had left. Lu Zhong arranged a very sumptuous meal in the lobby of the post house and invited Qin Yin, Tang Xiaoxi, and Lin Muyu to the banquet. Since they had to eat their fill, Lin Muyu didn't refuse. Only 5 people were qualified to eat with the Empress: Lin Muyu, Tang Xiaoxi, Count of Tianji Lu Zhong, and his 2 sons, Lu Chong and Lu Shan. The candlelight swayed gently. Under Lin Muyu's spiritual pulse technique, Lu Zhong's cultivation was roughly at the peak of the first heaven of the heaven realm. He was already considered outstanding among the captaincy of the empire, and his cultivation was about the same as Wei Chou and Luo Yu. As for his two sons, Lu Chong was around 20 years old and was at the first heaven of the earth realm. Lu Shan was at the third heaven of the man realm. They weren't very strong, but they were considered good among the younger generation. Lu Zhong raised his cup and said respectfully, "I'll punish myself with a cup of wine first." As he spoke, he drank it in one gulp and continued to look at Qin Yin respectfully, saying, "I wonder why Your Highness, Princess Shi, and Commander Yu left Lanyan City and came to Cangnan Province. Is it also for the heaven-grade weapon on the Cloud Ridge in Tianshu Province?" Qin Yin nodded and said, "That's right." As she spoke, her pair of beautiful eyes flashed and disappeared. She asked in reply, "I don't know why Uncle Tianji brought nearly 1,000 men and horses to Cangnan Province with such a large force." Lu Zhong was a little ashamed and said, "Actually, I also wanted to seize this heaven-grade weapon and offer it to Your Highness. I hope Your Highness won't blame me." Qin Yin said faintly, "The local garrison generals are not allowed to leave the city without permission. I wonder if General is aware of this military law of the empire." "I know, Your Highness, please calm down." Lu Zhong hurriedly retreated and knelt down, knocking his forehead heavily on the floor. "It's all right." Qin Yin raised her hand and said, "You may rise. I don't blame you. Bring your men back to Tianji City tomorrow morning, understand? That's where your duty lies." "Yes, Your Highness. I will obey." Chapter 468. Late at night, a light drizzle fell from the sky. The cool drizzle drifted in through the window of the post house, and Lin Muyu stood there quietly with her stellar sword in her hand. It was another cloudy night, and there was no way for her to cultivate the stellar arts. Fortunately, she still had a piece of roasted swan meat in her universe bag. After taking it out and chewing it carefully, she used the clear heart incantation taught by Tang Xiaoxi to resist the heat energy brought by the swan meat. SSSSSS, an almost inaudible sound came from her meridians, and she could faintly see a fiery red aura moving in her meridians. That was the light of the king's fighting flame. Lin Muyu took a deep breath and continued to use the dragon forging bone remnant scroll to refine the strength of her king's fighting flame. At the same time, she absorbed the spirit energy from the swan meat to refine the intensity and purity of the king's fighting flame, making it even more powerful. Probably because the window was open, the bell-like laughter of Tang Xiaoxi and Qin Yin came from the room next door. It was late at night, but they still hadn't slept and were still laughing. After an unknown amount of time, Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi's laughter became fainter and fainter. They had probably gone to sleep. Huff, Lin Muyu leisurely exhaled, and a faint flame flowed out of her mouth. This was the impure aura of the king's fighting flame. The king's fighting flame was formed by the cultivator's qi si, and it was refined by gathering the spirit energy of the world. The ultimate goal of refining the king's fighting flame was to refine it to 100% purity and remove the impure aura. Obviously, Lin Muyu was still far from that. If she could really cultivate the king's fighting flame to 100% purity, her power would probably be comparable to the holy heaven realm Chu Chu. She turned around and went back to her room, and her body felt a little hot. Sitting cross-legged on the bed, Xiaochen silently recited the mantra for the cleansing heart incantation. The king's battle flame slowly flowed through his body, dispelling the burning sensation from Swan Ni's flesh. This cleansing heart incantation was indeed very useful. It was worthy of being one of the 7 Seas Tang sect's secret arts. Placing the star's sword next to her pillow, Lin Muyu subconsciously released her spirit pulse art to sense her surroundings. Tang Xiaoxi and Qin Yin's auras were slowly decreasing. Once a cultivator fell asleep, their auras would also enter a dormant state, which made it very difficult for others to sense them. Aside from the 2 girls' auras, there were also the auras of Lu Zhong, Lu Chong, and Lu Shan, who had not fallen asleep yet. Quietly closing her eyes, Lin Muyu slowly fell asleep. However, the king's fighting flame in her body actually appeared on the surface of her body along with the star art's Xian energy, forming a faint fiery red star lotus armor to protect its sleeping master. In the dream, the sound of iron hooves was very intense. Lin Muyu frowned and stood on the grass with a sharp sword in his hand. He was wearing a broken Imperial Guard armor and was covered in blood. He roared, "Ah ah." In the distance, the Ihan nation's battle flag was flying in the air. Countless iron hooves spurred their horses and rushed over. There was even a general shouting, "The person who beheads Lin Muyu will be rewarded with 100,000 gold." The sound of iron hooves was dense. In the dream, Lin Muyu's arms were weak, and the battle chi in his body seemed to have been exhausted. "Come on." He roared unwillingly and raised his arm. The 7 luminary Xian energy brought with it a blue starlight, and the 7 luminary stars' transformation whizzed out. However, the surging star power seemed to be too strong. It instantly swallowed his right arm, and his entire arm exploded, turning into a pile of flesh and blood. Ah ah ah, Lin Muyu knelt on the ground, and her eyes were already blood red. "You! Hurry up and leave." A voice that hadn't been heard for a long time came from behind. It was Chu Huaying. He was wearing silver armor and a snow-white robe. He held a sword in his hand, and starlight flowed in his palm. The star-plucking finger landed heavily on the crowd, causing a group of Ihan nation's iron hooves to howl in pain. Then, Chu Huaying raised his sword and ordered loudly, "Flying Mount Battalion, follow me. Protect His Highness and Lin Muyu." The iron hooves from both sides clashed, and the entire sky was filled with blood. Pfft, no one knew who it was, but Chu Huaying's left arm was cut in half. Countless spears suddenly pierced through his handsome body, and blood stained his white robe. He fell from his horse and rolled into the mud. However, he still held onto his sword and shouted in a hoarse voice, "For the Empire, for His Highness, charge and kill." The black mass of Ihan nation's iron hooves swept past, and Chu Huaying's body drifted away like a fallen leaf in the wind. Lin Muyu raised her head and looked at everything helplessly and angrily. She felt as if all the energy in her body had been sucked dry, and she roared like a wild beast, Don't kill him. You bastards, don't kill him." The scene suddenly changed. Lin Muyu was kneeling in a puddle of water. "Where is this? Brother Chu? Where's Brother Chu?" He looked around in a daze, and tears filled his eyes. However, he saw a corpse floating in the puddle a few meters away. It was the radiant prince, Qin Jin. At this moment, Qin Jin was lying quietly at the bottom of the puddle, his eyes wide open. There were many blood-red bruises on his neck, and the desolation sword in his hand had already been snatched away. Suddenly, a figure emerged from Qin Jin's body. He was still as dignified as before, but his gaze towards Lin Muyu was very gentle. He smiled faintly and said, You've finally come to see me?" Lin Muyu slowly stood up and looked at Qin Jin. Father has already left this world." Qin Jin looked deeply at him and said, I've been keeping a low profile all my life, thinking that I could make the empire stronger and more prosperous. However, I never thought that this would be the result. I've never treated you like a real father. You won't blame me, right?" Lin Muyu's body trembled. She did not answer Qin Jin's question, but asked, "Father, before you went to Fairy Lake, did you know that Qin Yi would send people to kill you?" "So what if I knew? So what if I didn't?" Qin Jin's eyes were filled with peace and tranquility. He smiled slightly and said, "What will come will come. There's no escaping this. You're a strong child. I've always known that, and I also believe that you'll be able to accomplish great things. However, I can't stop worrying about Xiao Yin, and I can't stop worrying about my only daughter." Lin Muyu nodded and looked at the ripples on the surface of the water. It was unknown when it had started raining. He raised his head to look at Qin Jin and said, "Father, I'll take good care of Xiao Yin and do my best to protect her." Qin Jin's spiritual body slowly flew forward and placed his palm on Lin Muyu's shoulder. His eyes were filled with kindness as he slowly raised his palm and caressed Lin Muyu's face, which had been carved by the hardships of time. 2 streams of tears slowly flowed down and splashed onto the surface of the water. Qin Jin, the King of Light, was actually crying. He said tearfully, "You, my son, you're the greatest pride of my life. I've let you down, so please don't blame me. Help me take good care of your younger sister, Xiao Yin. I've let the world down, and the only thing I can do is be a good father. I have to leave. You, take care." As he spoke, Qin Jin's spiritual body turned into starlight and flew towards the heavenly river in the sky like a firefly. Lin Muyu slowly knelt down in the pool, and the tears in his eyes finally flowed out. He held on to his sharp sword with one hand and pressed his other hand into the mud, as if he was a knight on guard. He looked up at the sky and said, "Father, rest in peace. I'll take good care of Xiao Yin. I'll also take back the world for you." Lin Muyu suddenly woke up from his dream. When he opened his eyes, it was already dawn. His cheeks were wet. He had actually cried in his dream. But today, Lin Muyu was no longer the same as before. Weakness was like poison to him. He quickly raised his hand to wipe away his tears. How could Lin Muyu, one of the 4 heroes of Lanyan, cry? But just as he raised his hand, Lin Muyu realized that the treasured sword of stars next to his pillow had disappeared without a trace. Oh my God! His body suddenly trembled. The treasured sword of stars was gone. He hurriedly turned over to look for it, but he still couldn't find any trace of the treasured sword of stars. He immediately became anxious. The treasured sword of stars was a first-grade sacred artifact, but the sword spirit of the treasured sword was his master, the Sword Elder. How could he let this sword be lost in his hands? He hurriedly put on his clothes and went out the door, only to find Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi walking towards him with breakfast in their hands. "What's wrong, big brother you?" Qin Yin asked in surprise. "The treasured sword of stars has been stolen." Lin Muyu clenched her fist and said angrily, "Someone actually stole the treasured sword of stars without anyone noticing. It's all my fault for being too careless." "It can't be." Tang Xiaoxi's mouth opened wide. "Mu, aren't you well versed in the spiritual pulse technique? With your ability, who could get so close to you without anyone noticing? I don't know either. Hurry up and find it." "Okay." The 2 girls didn't care about eating anymore. Qin Yin directly went downstairs and shouted, "Lu Zhong." Uncle Tianji, who was dressed in iron armor, was about to go out. He hurriedly turned around and cupped his fists respectfully. "Your Highness, please give me your orders. Commander Yu's treasured sword of stars has been lost. Immediately gather your men and search the entire post house. Find it for me." "Yes." Lu Zhong's face was filled with shock. "May I ask your Highness, the treasured sword of stars, a substandard divine artifact? It's a divine artifact that fell from the heaven realm on the cloud ridge." "Oh my God." Lu Zhong was shocked. "I'll send people to find it now." "Good. If you can find it, you will be rewarded handsomely." "Yes." Lin Muyu squinted her eyes and looked at Lu Zhong's group. She slowly activated the spiritual pulse technique. The range of detection was getting bigger and bigger. However, she couldn't sense the slightest aura of the treasured sword within a mile. She continued to inject her king's battle flame into the spiritual pulse technique and extended the detection radius, 2 miles. 3 miles. 4 miles. 5 miles. 6 miles. When the spiritual pulse technique extended to 10 miles, it was already the limit of the strength of Lin Muyu's soul. However, at this moment, a familiar fluctuation suddenly appeared in the spiritual pulse technique. It was the sword's soul power of the treasured sword of stars. "Found it." Lin Muyu clapped her hands and said, "Xiao Yin, the treasured sword of stars is in the west. It's in the direction of Lanyan City. Let's chase after it. I want to see who has the guts to steal my things." "Okay." It was still drizzling in the morning. The three of them put on their straw raincoats and got on their horses. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared into the misty rain. Outside the post house, Lu Zhong, Lu Chong, and Lu Shan respectfully sent the Empress off. When the three of them were far away, Lu Chong raised his head and a glint flashed across his eyes. Lu Chong asked, "Father, is that treasured sword of stars really a divine artifact?" Her Highness said it's a substandard divine artifact. It's even higher than a holy divine artifact. It's one of a kind in this realm. Lu Zhong's eyes were filled with excitement. He lowered his voice and said, "Chong, how strong are the people you sent? Will they be captured by Lin Muyu? He's a holy king who has the king's battle flame." "Absolutely not," Lu Chong said confidently. Chapter 469. Tuck, 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 the sound of hooves beating on the muddy ground could be heard. The three warhorses were all fine horses of the endless forest, so their bodies were relatively heavy. Their hooves kicked up the mud on the official road as they galloped forward like three bolts of lightning. Riding on the warhorse, Lin Muyu concentrated the power of her soul and soon found the aura of the sword soul again. Perhaps the person who stole the sword would not have thought that he could find the sword by relying on the location of the sword soul. Treading on the snow, she was getting closer and closer. In the blink of an eye, she was less than a mile away from the thief. At this time, the rain had stopped. Looking from afar, a man in black tights was galloping on the official road. Unfortunately, his horse was not as majestic as Lin Muyu's and the others, and he was about to be caught up. Suddenly, he looked back and couldn't help but tremble when he saw Lin Muyu. And Lin Muyu also saw clearly that the long sword on the back of this man was Xing Chen. "How dare he steal it from me?" Lin Muyu was a little sad and indignant. She was the Grand Deacon of the Holy Temple of the Empire, and was also praised by Qin Yin as the strongest person under the age of 30 in the Empire. Now, her long sword was stolen from her room. It was a great shame. Seeing that the warhorse could not outrun her, the thief immediately pulled the reins and led the warhorse to the side of the forest. Walala, this was a forest full of bushes and thorns. The horse was quickly stabbed and cried out in pain. When Lin Muyu, Qin Yin, and Tang Xiaoxi arrived, they only saw the neck of the horse full of blood. It stood there swinging its tail, and the person had disappeared. What a fast movement. What kind of lightness skill was that? Lin Muyu quickly turned over and dismounted from the horse. She turned around and said, "I will chase him with falling star steps. Xiao Yin, Xiao Shi, you two lead the horse and wait for me here. I will come back after I catch up with him." "Well, brother Yu, be careful." "Be careful, Mu." The two girls looked up at the same time. They also knew that they could not catch up with Lin Muyu in the forest. Moreover, the thief seemed to have extraordinary skills. Even if they caught up with him, he would only be a burden to Lin Muyu. Swoosh, stepping on the astral light, Lin Muyu disappeared into the forest like a shadow. Her king's battle flame was slowly rising. Using the spirit pulse spell, she locked onto the thief's position. When Lin Muyu suddenly passed through the broad-leaved forest, she saw that the thief was only a few hundred meters away from her. His running speed was frighteningly fast. His legs were running as if he was flying. Stepping on the grass and leaves, she could faintly see the light of battle chi surrounding his body. Damn, he's a heaven realm warrior. There are really many extraordinary people in this continent. Lin Muyu sprinted with all her might. Her speed had already been raised to the limit. Her falling star steps swept through the forest like a meteor falling to the ground. At the same time, she let out popping sounds as if she was flying. However, the thief's speed did not seem to be inferior. He carried the star's sword on his back and continued to run. His feet were surrounded by a dense wind-type fighting energy. Every step he took seemed to be using a mystic technique that could shrink the ground to inches. Although it was a distance of tens of meters, he was able to cover it in a single leap. His body was like a phantom and was very mysterious. What kind of damned qigong is this? Lin Muyu was a little speechless. Ever since she came to the Shattered Cauldron realm, this was the first time she saw someone who could beat her falling star steps in qigong. This person was really not simple. Moreover, even at such a close distance, Lin Muyu's star steps couldn't sense the thief's aura at all. It was as if the thief's aura was completely concealed. In the end, Lin Muyu chased with all her might. The thief also ran with all his might. One in front, one behind. No one could catch up, and no one could escape. Just like that, they passed through the mountain road at the side of the official road. After running for nearly 20 kilometers, the thief finally showed a trace of fatigue. The distance between the two was getting closer. Presumably, his qigong also consumed a lot of fighting energy. His fighting energy was obviously not as vigorous and long as Lin Muyu's king fighting flame. He lost in terms of cultivation. Swoosh, the thief suddenly stopped running. He raised his hand and pulled out the star's sword. He roared angrily, "Bastard, why are you chasing me so hard?" The star's sword was full of fighting energy. The power of a divine weapon could not be underestimated. At this moment, Lin Muyu couldn't take it head-on with her bare hands. She suddenly spun her body and dodged the star's sword slash with her butterfly steps. Her arm moved smoothly and the back of her hand, which was full of king fighting flame, lightly hit the thief's back. Bang! The battle armor shattered instantly. She never expected that the thief was actually a heavenly king. But obviously, the heavenly king's strength was inferior to the holy king's by 3 realms. He wasn't a match for him at all. Lin Muyu's casual attack directly caused him to vomit blood. Damn it! The thief flew into a rage out of humiliation. He turned around and swept out a second attack. Lin Muyu didn't even use the pressure of her holy realm to suppress him. Instead, she wanted to test the thief's skills. She suddenly leaned back and did a metal bridge. At the same time, she raised her boot and kicked the thief's wrist with her king fighting flame. The thief reacted very quickly. He turned his wrist and twisted the blade of his sword in the air. He turned around and slashed at Lin Muyu's foot. How could this be? Lin Muyu immediately activated the 7 Luminaries' Holy Gourd's ability, Dragon Blood Shield. In the next moment, the star's sword struck the Dragon Blood Shield and rebounded with a clang. Lin Muyu took advantage of this opportunity to open her palm. Strands of astral power appeared and wrapped around the blade of the star's sword. She suddenly pulled it back. Return it to me. The strength of a holy king was so powerful that she directly dragged the thief and the sword back. Buzz, buzz, a golden gourd wall disintegrated into countless golden armor leaves and wrapped around Lin Muyu's 5 fingers. The golden steel palm grabbed the blade of the star's sword and quickly snatched it away. At the same time, she raised her battle knee and slammed 10% of her king fighting flame into the thief's abdomen. Arg! The thief spat out another mouthful of blood and fell to the ground. His body spasmed and he was about to be crippled. Lin Muyu sheathed the star's sword and went up to the thief's face mask. She found that it was a young man around 25 years old. His eyes were filled with anger. Who are you? I will never change my name or my surname. He slowly sat up, his eyes filled with pride as he said, I am Bai Yin. Bai Yin? I don't know you. Lin Muyu shook her head. You. Bai Yin was furious. He felt that his pride had been hurt. You don't even know the famous thief Saint Bai Yin. How dare you live in Jianghu? Humph, what a joke. You're the joke. Lin Muyu smiled with an imposing manner. Do you know who I am? Who are you? Do you know Lin Muyu? You're Lin Muyu. Bai Yin couldn't help but laugh out loud. If you're the famous General Lin Muyu, then I'm the reincarnation of the god of war, Xiang Wendian. I can't explain it to you. Lin Muyu went up and slapped the back of Bai Yin's head, knocking him out. She put him under her armpit and used falling star steps to go back. She returned to where she was in less than an hour. Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi were waiting anxiously. When they saw Lin Muyu come back, they went up to greet her. You caught him? Yes. Lin Muyu threw the thief to the ground and said, this is the person who stole the stellar sword. He's quite skilled and calls himself the thief Saint Bai Yin. I've never heard of him before. Ah. Tang Xiaoxi couldn't help but laugh. Silly Mu, you're so focused on the empire's military affairs that you don't know about the rumors in Jianghu. This thief Saint Bai Yin is a famous figure in Jianghu. Oh. How famous is he? Lin Muyu asked. Qin Yin, who was at the side, was also waiting for Tang Xiaoxi's reply with her eyes wide open. It was clear that she lived in Zetian Palace every day and didn't have the time to listen to the rumors in Jianghu. Tang Xiaoxi said, thief Saint Bai Yin, 27 or 28 years old, can be said to be a legend of a generation. It's said that he studied under the thief god Zhuge Xing when he was very young. He was struck by lightning when he was young, but he didn't die. Instead, he obtained an extraordinary cultivation. He followed Zhuge Xing and practiced the turtle breathing technique, absolute step, Yangshan art, and other secret arts since he was young. He can take things from a distance and become invisible like a shadow. There's such a thing. Lin Muyu looked at the unconscious Bai Yin on the ground and said, humph, didn't I still easily knock him out? Tang Xiaoxi tilted her head and looked at her proud expression. She couldn't help but smile affectionately. Silly Mu, do you think everyone has your mysterious encounters and almost abnormal cultivation speed? If you didn't exist in this world, Bai Yin might be the strongest person in the younger generation. That's true. Lin Muyu nodded. Bai Yin had the cultivation of a heavenly king at the age of 27, while Xiang Yu had only stepped into the heavenly king realm at the age of 31. This meant that Bai Yin's strength was already firmly above Xiang Yu's, but slightly inferior to Feng Jixing's. Now, how does Big Brother you plan to deal with this thief saint? Qin Yin asked with a smile. Lin Muyu muttered to herself and said, I can't let this brat go around stealing things. Since he fell into my hands today, I will tame him and make him serve the empire. Shao Yin, confer him an official title. How about it? All right, I'll listen to you. Splash, the water in the water bag splashed onto Bai Yin's face. He woke up with a start and said angrily, stinking bee asterisk starred, let me go if you have the guts. I want to fight 300 rounds with you and decide who's the stronger. I didn't tie you up. Lin Muyu stood majestically. The fighting flame on her body slowly spun, and the pressure of the sacred lingered around, causing Bai Yin to feel a chill from the bottom of his heart. This was Lin Muyu's true strength, an ability that completely surpassed the heaven realm. It could be said that with Bai Yin's current cultivation, Lin Muyu could fight 10 of him. I'm not feeling well today. I'll beat you up another day. Bai Yin said, unconvinced. Bai Yin, you stole the sword of the commander of the Empire's Longdan army camp, Lin Muyu. Do you know your crime? To the side, Qin Yin's pretty face was cold as she spoke with authority. This kind of presence was not something a normal woman could have. Chapter 470. He's Lin Muyu, one of the 4 heroes of Lan Yen? Ha ha ha, don't lie to me. I'm not well educated. Bai Yin suddenly burst into laughter as if Qin Yin's words were the funniest joke in the world. Qin Yin did not get angry. Instead, she smiled faintly and said, Brother Yu, show him your general seal. Okay. Lin Muyu took out the general seal from her chinkuan pouch and slowly lifted it up. The words, General Seal, were engraved on the bottom of the golden seal. Looking at the shocked Bai Yin, Lin Muyu asked, Do you believe me now? I. Bai Yin looked a little uneasy. He sat there not knowing what to do. Tang Xiaoxi bent down and looked at his face. She smiled and said, Boy, do you know who the beauty who spoke to you just now is? Who is she? Who is the ruler of the empire today? Her Majesty Qin Yin. Who is the woman who can control General Lin Muyu? Tang Xiaoxi reminded him with a smile. I heard it's Princess Tang Xiaoxi. Bai Yin grinned. Tang Xiaoxi's face immediately turned red. She said happily, "You really know how to chat, Xiaoxi, what are you talking about?" Qin Yin was speechless. Tang Xiaoxi immediately put on a serious face and said, "Bai Yin, you have offended Her Majesty. Don't you know your crime?" Bai Yin was stunned. He carefully looked at Qin Yin and realized that this beauty was indeed the most beautiful woman in the world. Then, he looked at the way she spoke and the way she dressed. Suddenly, he seemed to understand everything. He hurriedly got up, knelt on the ground, and said, "Commoner Bai Yin pays respect to Your Majesty. Get up." Qin Yin smiled and said, "You've stolen countless things in your life, so you must have collected a lot of good things. However, you are still a thief, and according to the imperial law, you should be executed. However, just now, Commander Yu pleaded for you and begged me to spare you from the death penalty. Do you think I should spare your life?" Bai Yin hurriedly knelt down again and kowtowed repeatedly. "Your Majesty, please spare my life. This commoner knows his mistake, this commoner knows his mistake. That depends on how Commander Yu plans to deal with you." Qin Yin smiled with dimples. Bai Yin looked at Lin Muyu and suddenly felt a wave of sorrow. He felt that there was no hope left in this life. Originally, with his outstanding cultivation, he would have no problem moving unhindered across the mainland. However, there would always be someone stronger than him. Unfortunately, he had encountered Lin Muyu in Sangnan province, a fellow with an abnormally strong cultivation. He couldn't beat her, nor could he run away. What else could he do? In desperation, Bai Yin cupped his fists and said, "Please deal with me, Commander Yu." Lin Muyu leaned on the star's sword and said, "Bai Yin, you have been a thief all your life. Do you feel that in the end, there is no meaning in stealing? Money is like dung. No matter what kind of treasure it is, it's just an external possession. You can't bring it with you when you're alive, and you can't bring it with you when you're dead. Commander Yu is right. Now, I'll give you a chance. Are you willing to serve the Empress, Her Highness Qin Yin?" Lin Muyu looked at him deeply. The star's sword in her hand was surrounded by a strong imperial fighting flame. Her intention couldn't be more obvious. "If you dare to disagree, I'll beat you up." Bai Yin shuddered and said, "Even though I, Bai Yin, live in the underworld, I'm still a citizen of the Empire. I'm willing to serve the Empress." "Very well." Lin Muyu smiled brightly. "On behalf of the Empress, I accept your loyalty. From now on, you will work for Zhe Tian Palace. At the same time, you will also be a member of the Longdan army camp. You will listen to all my orders. Are you willing?" I'm willing to follow you, Commander Yu." Bai Yin had no choice but to agree. Lin Muyu continued, "For the time being, the Longdan army camp doesn't have a title for you. You will be my personal bodyguard. Also, we need to set 3 rules." "What do you mean by 3 rules?" "First, you are not allowed to steal in the future. You are not allowed to steal even 1 copper coin. The soldiers of the Empire will not steal." "Yes." "Second, you must always be loyal to the Empire. You cannot betray it. Otherwise, you will be struck by lightning." "Yes." "Third, hand over the 7 space bags tied around your waist. These are the things you stole. They must be confiscated and directly put into the military warehouse of the Longdan army camp." "Ah." For a moment, Bai Yin felt as if he had boarded a pirate ship. "Commander, didn't you say that money is like dirt? Why must you ask for my personal property? To you, money is like dirt, but to me, it's different. This money can be used to fund the military supplies of the Longdan army camp." Lin Muyu played with the hilt of the star's sword with a bright smile on her face. She was extremely handsome and looked like a rogue commander. She smiled and said, "You must abide by these 3 rules. However, we pay attention to human rights. It's fine if you don't agree, but I will tie you up and bring you back to Lanyan City. You will be executed on the streets. All the space bags will still be mine. how about it? This is a chance for you to turn over a new leaf. Make your own choice. Bai Yin wailed in his heart. Like a warrior who had broken his wrist, he removed the space bag from his waist and handed it over. Commander, can you leave one for me? No way. Do you think this is a market where you can bargain? The Empire's laws are dignified and cannot be blasphemed. A certain someone acted righteously, but at the same time, he happily took all the interspatial bags. He opened one of them and took a look. When he saw the sparkling treasures, he was so furious that he almost could not close his mouth. He said bitterly, "There are so many great treasures. How worried must the owners be?" Bai Yin, when you stole these treasures, did you ever think about the pain the owners had to go through? I've thought about it. I know I was wrong. Bai Yin felt that his heart had been hollowed out by this legendary hero-level commander who had repelled the demons. However, this person in front of him didn't look like a hero of the Empire, but more like a street vendor. Bai Yin felt even more bitter when he thought about the treasures in the 7 space bags. Tang Xiaoxi checked the treasures in the space bags one by one and finally said softly, "This guy is really a thief. All the treasures here add up to at least 10 million Jin Yin coins. Otherwise, why would he be called the Holy Pirate?" Qin Yin said with a smile. Lin Muyu tied the 7 space bags to her waist one after another and said, "Your Highness Shao Yin, I request that these treasures be given to the Zine Flower Chamber of Commerce for sale. All the treasures will be used to supply the Longdan Army camp's equipment and military supplies, as well as the Ministry of Works research on weapons." "All right, it's approved." Qin Yin smiled as she enjoyed the success. Lin Muyu walked forward and patted Bai Yin. She looked at his pained expression and said, "When you return to Lanyan City, you'll be one of the soldiers in the Longdan Army camp. At the same time, you'll also be a member of the Empire's army. You must remember the glory of being an Empire's soldier, understand?" "Yes, Lord Commander." Bai Yin felt as if a knife was twisting in his heart as he looked at the young and handsome commander. He carefully asked, "There are some scattered Jin Yin coins in the 7th bag. Can you give me some to pay for the wine? Don't worry, the Longdan Army camp will provide a monthly salary. It's enough for you to drink." "Yes, don't steal any more, or I'll beat you up." "Yes, Commander. I'll keep that in mind, let's go." Yes, Lin Muyu was in a good mood as she continued her journey back. She hummed a tune as she cultivated. Although her stellar sword was almost stolen, she had recovered it after losing it. Furthermore, she had gained the loyalty of the world's #1 thief, Bai Yin. Furthermore, she had received 10 million Jin Yin coins worth of treasures as a gift. This trip to Dubhe province could be considered a huge gain. "Oh yes, Bai Yin, I have a question for you." Lin Muyu suddenly remembered something. "Please ask, Commander," Bai Yin said respectfully. He wore the military insignia of the Imperial Army that Lin Muyu had bestowed upon him. Behind the purple flower were 2 bronze 6-pointed stars, which was the military insignia of the Imperial Army. Although it was only a 10-man squad leader, Bai Yin felt an inexplicable sense of belonging. He actually felt happy. Although he kept scolding himself for being stupid for spending 10 million on a 10-man squad leader, this feeling of happiness only increased. It was simply killing him. Lin Muyu said, "How did you know that the star's sword was with me? And how did you know that I was staying in that hostel? Did someone tip you off?" "No one tipped me off," Bai Yin said. "It's just that I was hired by someone. As long as I stole the star's sword, the other party promised to give me 5 million Jin Yin coins." 5 million? What a huge sum. "Who is it?" This subordinate can't say. After all, this subordinate was just a hired thief, so I can't go back on my word. I hope that Lord Commander won't make things difficult for me." Bai Yin cupped his fists and said very respectfully, but also very seriously. Lin Muyu nodded. "It's fine. You can tell me in a roundabout way. Don't forget that you are now a soldier of the Imperial Army. This is your duty. Yes, this subordinate can't tell Commander who hired me, but I can tell Commander that he is stationed in Tianji City. As expected. Lin Muyu and Qin Yin looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. Lu Zhong, the Count of Tianji, seemed to be loyal, but in reality, he was outwardly obedient but inwardly opposed. He actually sent someone to steal the star's sword. How gutsy was he? Lu Zhong, this bastard. It looks like he won't be able to hold on to the title of Count of Tianji for long, Qin Yin said with some anger. Lin Muyu said, Xiao Yin, don't be in a hurry to take down Count of Tianji. The powers in the Seven Seas province are too complicated. If we're not careful, we'll be implicated. Regarding the Seven Seas province, we should consult Xiaoxi first. Qin Yin nodded lightly and looked at Tang Xiaoxi with a gentle gaze. Tang Xiaoxi's starry eyes looked towards the northeast. That was the direction of the Seven Seas province. She said softly, the powers and families in the Seven Seas province are indeed very complicated. Count of Tianji is only one of the 7 vassals. He controls about 30,000 soldiers. There are 6 other vassals, all of whom are grandfather's trusted aides. These vassals all have family ties with each other. Some are even in-laws. What Mu said is right. Grandfather's military power is almost all distributed to these 7 vassals. As long as the 7 vassals have the intention to rebel, I'm afraid grandfather can't do anything about it. We need to take it slow. As she said this, she looked at Qin Yin apologetically. I'm sorry, Xiao Yin. The Tang family's huge military power in the Seven Seas province has worried you. It's okay, Xiaoxi. Qin Yin smiled gently. I won't touch Lu Zhong for now. Let's go back to Lanyan City first. Chapter 471. 3 days later, they arrived at Lanyan City. They entered the city in disguise. When Lin Muyu, Qin Yin, and Tang Xiaoxi arrived at Zetian Palace Hall, Qin Yan was on duty and immediately recognized them. He went forward, knelt on the ground, and said, Commander of the Imperial Guards, Qin Yan, pays his respects to your highness. Qin Yin smiled and nodded. Please rise, Commander Qin Yan. At this moment, Bai Yin was sure that this group of people were the ones in power in the Qin Empire. At the same time, he was even more in awe of Lin Muyu. This ruthless and vicious person was definitely not the righteous hero in the legends. Lin Muyu was still deep in thought. She only came back to her senses after Qin Yan called her big brother. She smiled and said, let's not talk so much. Send Her Highness back to Zetian Palace Hall. She needs a good rest and a hot bath. Yes. In front, a group of imperial guards dressed in bright armor stood on both sides, protecting the Empress. However, before Qin Yin put on the Empress's robe, she still maintained the demeanor of a little girl. She secretly held onto Lin Muyu's arm and said coquettishly, Brother Yu. What's the matter, Xiao Yin? Lin Muyu lowered her head and smiled at her. What were you thinking about along the way? You ignored me and Xiaoxi. Qin Yin asked a question that she hadn't asked for a long time. Lin Muyu thought for a while and said, I was thinking about the star's sword. This star's sword was obviously taken away by Luolan from the Sword Elder when he massacred Lanyan City. It should be in Lingnan. Why did it fall from the heaven realm? There must be a reason for this. Qin Yin was stunned. Are you saying that Luolan ascended in the past few years? Or Luolan is no longer in the 7 world palaces, but has already ascended? Lin Muyu couldn't help but sneer, don't say that I look down on him. With Luolan's cultivation, he's not even fit to carry the shoes of the gods when he ascends to the heaven realm. Moreover, he offended the 7 luminaries demon emperor, so he doesn't have the guts to ascend to the heaven realm. Then what could it be? I suspect that this sword was offered to a god in the heavenly realm by Lauren, and then she fell for some reason. As for why she fell, I don't know, but this is the most reliable deduction. Qin Yin nodded and pondered for a moment before saying, if that's the case, then Roland has already made contact with the heaven realm. Brother do you want to try and contact the Demon Emperor? There's nothing I can do about it. The distance between the mortal realm and the heaven realm is too great. I can't even send my thoughts to the heaven realm. After all, my cultivation is limited. I can only wait for the Demon Emperor to come find me. However, the Demon Emperor won't come find me unless it's something very important. Activating the Divine Oracle consumes divine power. Then we can only wait and see. Yes, that's the only way. In any case, you and Xiaoxi have to increase your cultivation. Yes, I got it. After the banquet, Qin Yin took a bath and changed her clothes. Wearing the Empress's long dress, she slowly walked over. Her delicate and jade-like face was glistening under the candlelight. Her entire person seemed to be radiating in all directions. She was so beautiful that Lin Muyu couldn't help but be stunned when he saw her. What's the matter? Qin Yin looked at his stupefied look and giggled, but her heart was as sweet as honey. Lin Muyu hurriedly lowered his head in shame. Qin Yan, Feng Jixing, and Wei Chou were still at the side. Staring at the Empress's face like this was actually already blasphemy against her authority. However, Feng Jixing and Qin Yan were also staring at Qin Yin. This couldn't be helped. Men's nature was like this. Moreover, Qin Yan's beauty was indeed unrivaled in the present age. There was nothing wrong with taking another look. Qin Yin unhurriedly held on to Lin Muyu's arm and said, "Let's go. We should go to the ancestor to receive the examination. General Feng, please take care of the imperial capital's surrounding defenses. Commander Qin Yan, please ensure the safety of Zetian Palace Hall. Deputy Commander Wei Chou, be in charge of the Longdan Army camp's training, as well as the daily necessities of the savage tribe's army." "Yes, Your Highness." The three generals cupped their fists in unison. Meanwhile, Lin Muyu brought Qin Yin straight to Yangxin Pavilion. Bai Yin became Lin Muyu's personal bodyguard. He changed into a set of Imperial Guard armor and followed closely behind, standing guard outside Yangxin Pavilion's door. When Lin Muyu knocked on the door, she saw Qin Han sitting there cultivating with rainbow-colored divine radiance. Without opening his eyes, he smiled and said, "You two are finally back. Greetings, Ancestor." Both of them knelt down in unison. Qin Han opened his eyes and said with a smile, "You actually stepped into the Holy King realm. What a surprise. Is the martial soul fusion cultivation complete?" "It's completed, Ancestor," Lin Muyu said respectfully. "Good, take it out and let Ancestor take a look." "Yes." Lin Muyu stood up and took a few steps back. With a low grunt, the two martial souls broke out of her body. The 10 god-binding chains rotated rapidly and broke down into golden metal pieces. Then, with a dang 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 sound, they combined together. In the blink of an eye, a golden greatsword appeared in Lin Muyu's palm. At the same time, the 7 luminary celestial gourd was also broken down, turning into engraved runes and life energy that flowed into the greatsword. Lin Muyu lightly swung her arm, and suddenly, the greatsword martial soul was surrounded by a majestic aura. "Good." Qin Han's eyes brightened. "Good boy, you really did not disappoint me. Your martial soul fusion rate is close to 70%, no less than Ancestor's. If you continue to cultivate, I'm afraid your martial soul fusion rate will be higher than mine. The younger generation will surpass us in time. Have you named your martial soul after the fusion?" Ancestor's martial soul is called 8 Desolate Godly Sword. "What is your sword-type martial soul called?" Lin Muyu said, "It's called Great Treasure Sword." Ah. Qin Han was so shocked that he almost fell off his chair. Such an arrogant and casual name. Qin Yin giggled. "I also think this name is too casual. If Ancestor is willing, why don't you name it for Big Brother Yu's new martial soul?" "Okay." Qin Han felt the majestic energy in the sword-type martial soul and said, "The sword contains 7 stars, and the immortal energy is dense. I think we should call it the 7 luminary celestial sword." What do you think, you? Yes. Lin Muyu nodded. I will have someone record the 7 luminary celestial sword and ancestors' 8 desolate godly sword into the Empire's Book of Souls. Okay. Qin Han looked at Qin Yin and smiled. Xiao Yin, it seems like your cultivation has improved a lot. Come, summon your martial soul, let ancestors see how much you've improved. Yes. Qin Yin let out a delicate cry. Immediately, 9 golden true dragon god binding chains encircled her elegant body. Each of the chains was like a swimming dragon, and each of them was filled with starlight. They looked extremely dazzling. Not bad. Qin Han nodded. Your cultivation has improved a lot, but it's still not fast enough. At this speed, you'll need at least 100 years to step into the god realm. You can wait, but you can't. That kid will step into the god realm in 10 years, and in 100 years, he'll be able to form a complete god emperor godhead. Wow. Lin Muyu was surprised. Am I that strong? Qin Han smiled. If the ancestor says you're strong, then you're strong. Alright, the ancestor needs to rest for a while. You can leave, but remember to follow the method I taught you, and continue to cultivate. Yes, ancestor. Bai Yin was still standing guard outside the door, and he asked respectfully, Commander, where are we going now? Back to the Holy Temple. I'll arrange a room for you. Yes. Just as they were about to leave, Lin Muyu halted her steps. Looking at the row of immortal crane palace lanterns outside the heart-nurturing pavilion, her eyes narrowed. I remember that the eyes of these immortal crane palace lanterns are inlaid with gems. Bai Yin, you bastard, in just a few minutes, you took away all these gems? Bai Yin hurried to explain, Commander, it was definitely not this subordinate's doing. You still dare to say it? Lin Muyu's gaze turned frosty, and her king-level battle flame soared. If you don't hand them over, I'll make a move. Bai Yin's face was ashen as he opened his palm, and the 24 black gems were stacked together. He said awkwardly, Commander, please forgive me, it's an occupational disease, I can't change it in a short time. I couldn't control myself just now. Lin Muyu took all the black gems and turned to Qin Yin. I'm really sorry, this guard is too embarrassing. Qin Yin smiled. It's fine, take your time to change. Lin Muyu turned around and glared at Bai Yin. The next time you do it, I won't let you off so easily. As she spoke, she casually threw the 24 black gems into her pocket. They were all precious treasures that could be auctioned for a high price. Brother you. Qin Yin held his hand affectionately, opened her palm, and said with a smile, hand them over. These black gems are very rare and have the effect of prolonging one's life. That's why they were placed in the residence of the ancestor. There aren't many of them in the world, and I can't gather all 24 of them anymore. Alright then. A certain someone shamelessly gave 21 black gems to Qin Yin, and he wouldn't spit out the remaining 3 no matter how much he wanted them. Bai Yin was dumbstruck as he watched from the side. He never imagined that someone would dare to act shamelessly in front of the Empress. Late at night, the temple deacon's office was brightly lit. The 4 generals, Situ Sun, Situ Shui, Wei Chou, and Fengxi, stood on both sides, waiting respectfully for the commander to return and issue his first order. Lin Muyu, on the other hand, had been reading a pile of files for a long time. Finally, she raised her head and looked at everyone. Situ Shui immediately smiled sweetly and asked, Commander, what order do you have? Let's have a lamb hot pot supper later. He said something that made everyone spit out rice. Wei Chou couldn't help but laugh and said, lamb hot pot is indeed very important. But Miss Jean Xiaotang from the Zine Flower Chamber of Commerce has been waiting outside for the time it takes for a joss stick to burn. Should we let her in? Quickly. Yes. Half a minute later, Jean Xiaotang walked in with a sullen look on her face. Brother Yu is so busy that he doesn't even have time to care about me. How can that be? Lin Muyu smiled and said, Xiaotang, come over here. I have some treasures that I need to sell at the Zine Flower Chamber of Commerce. Oh, what is it? Lin Muyu took out Bai Yin's 7 spatial lists. Jean Xiaotang was stunned for a moment before her pretty face was filled with a smile of joy. I'm rich. I'm rich, the Zine Flower Chamber of Commerce is rich, haha, of course. Lin Muyu smiled knowingly. However, Bai Yin still felt as if a knife was being twisted in his heart. He coughed and said, Commander. All right, there's no need to say anything else. In 3 days, you will be promoted to Chiliarch and rewarded with a gold military badge. Thank you, Commander. Bai Yin cupped his fists, his face full of gratitude. This fellow was truly an official fanatic. Late at night, after inviting Chu Yao from the Spiritual Medicine Division to have supper with a group of generals from the Longdan army camp, it was time for Lin Muyu to get busy. That's right, Swanni's spine was filled with high-purity godly metal. This batch of godly metal was enough to forge many godly weapons. Chapter 472. Wang. The cauldron turned into a golden screen of light and appeared in the chief attendant's office. Wei Chou, Chu Yao, and the others had already left, so Lin Muyu immediately took out the cauldron and got down to business. Rustle, the Cosmos sack's mouth was pushed wide open, and a 5-meter-long Bai Yan's spine was forcibly pulled out. However, it was too long, and the crafting cauldron could not contain it. Thus, she raised her hand and swung it down. The sharp stellar sword directly split the spine into 3 parts. After that, Lin Muyu gently raised her palm, and an invisible force field sent the 3 parts of the spine into the crafting cauldron. The 7th layer, flame refinement, stellar flames surged continuously in the cauldron, rapidly burning the pieces of Swan Ni's skeleton. However, the Swan Ni itself was of the fire attribute, so it took Lin Muyu almost half an hour to refine the bones before they slowly turned red. At this time, with a hissing sound, a liquid with a metallic luster flowed out from where the spinal cord should be. As expected, the Swan Ni's spine was filled with godly metal. Lin Muyu slowly opened her palm and controlled the strands of godly metal. Not long after, the 3 pieces of bones were completely refined into dust, while the godly metal turned into a fiery red liquid that boiled violently in the cauldron. The purity of the godly metal liquid was still not high enough. After refining for a while, she only obtained about 40 gene of godly metal. It was time. He reached into his cosmos sack and found the 400-year-old Bai Yan spirit stone. This was an unparalleled spirit stone, and it could be said to be a priceless treasure. However, Lin Muyu still had to refine it today. After all, she would be able to absorb a certain amount of spirit energy in the process to raise her cultivation. Moreover, weapon forging was a kind of cultivation in itself, so she couldn't slack off. More importantly, there was always a knot in Lin Muyu's heart. That was the former Emperor Qin Jin's Desolation Sword, which was originally a national treasure, the Emperor's Blade. Now, it had fallen into the hands of a despicable person like Qin Yi, so Lin Muyu had to forge an even more powerful weapon. As the Emperor's Blade of the Empire, Qin Yin's purpling sword was still far from enough. With a shake of her arm, the spirit stone flew into the cauldron. However, before Lin Muyu could start refining it, the spirit stone had already transformed into a Swan Ni star and pounced towards her. Fortunately, Lin Muyu was already prepared. She pushed out with both palms, and the king's battle flame, first appearance of starlight, directly smashed into the Swan Ni star. With a loud bang, the Swan Ni wailed miserably as it flew back into the cauldron. At the same time, Lin Muyu's arms went numb from the impact. The Swan Ni was simply too strong. Even after its death, the spirit energy it left behind was still so strong. The star flame's smelting flames slowly circled around the spirit stone, burning fiercely. Not long after, the spirit stone turned even redder. Right at this moment, another furious roar rang out. The Swan Ni was about to suffer a second backlash. Without even thinking, Lin Muyu's figure shot forward, God-binding chains circling around her fist. Her iron palm turned into a blade, and with the power of 5 mountains descending from the heavens, she smashed it down. Bang! Sparks flew everywhere, and half of the Swan Ni star's head was blasted off. However, it suddenly opened its mouth and bit towards Lin Muyu's arm, as if it was about to bite down on her. "Do you really have such good teeth?" Lin Muyu couldn't help but sneer. The 7 luminaries' fairy gourd shone brightly, and the dragon blood battle shield suddenly appeared around her arm. Immediately, the Swan Ni's sharp teeth rammed into the shield, and with a loud bang, the shield was completely shattered. Lin Muyu took the opportunity to punch the giant beast's mouth, and activated the 3 luminaries' calamity profound energy, forcibly tearing the Swan Ni's body apart once again. The second backlash had already made him sweat profusely. This repeated over and over again, and the soul of the Swan Ni continued to fight back. After the 8th time, a bite mark appeared on Lin Muyu's shoulder, and she had already pulled out the star sword to fight back. But the outer layer around the spirit stone was also peeling off, and it would not be long before it was refined. This was also the last struggle of the Swan Ni. Roar! The 9th backlash was, after all, an ancient beast, and the strength of its counterattack was stronger than the one before. The giant beast, several meters tall, roared in the treasure cauldron, and swung its sharp claws at Lin Muyu. Lin Muyu shouted in a low voice. The 7 luminaries' immortal gourd and the astral binding chains rapidly rotated and disintegrated. In the next moment, the new 7 luminaries' immortal sword Martial Soul's radiance soared into the sky and surrounded the astral sword. The backlash from a mere spirit stone had forced him to use all of his strength to suppress it. He raised his long sword and a golden wave rippled out along with his sword. Deterrence. The 10th level of the god-binding chains could directly attack the opponent's soul. Bang! The sword fell on the Swan Ni's hard head, and the giant beast howled in pain. Its sharp claws swept past Lin Muyu's abdomen, but the dragon blood battle shield formed by the 7 luminaries' fairy sword successfully blocked the attack, and at the same time, the deterrence's soul attack directly hit the Swan Ni's head. Roar, roar, roar! The Swan Ni took a few steps back, and miserably fell into the wall of the treasure cauldron. Its ferocity did not diminish, and it pounced again. With a loud roar, the surroundings were filled with golden stars raining down. This move was very familiar, and it turned out to be the ultimate skill of the Swan Ni's nature, absolute territory. Lin Muyu's body trembled. This time, she had no choice but to go all out. She let out a low roar, and the king's combat flame continuously surged into the 7 luminaries' fairy sword. The big treasure sword shone brightly, and at the same time, the 7 luminaries' Xian energy circulated, and the world spun and reversed, 6 luminaries heaven and earth tribulation. Boom, boom, the might of the 7 luminaries' fairy sword carried the 6 luminaries heaven and earth tribulation Xian energy, and directly slashed a magnificent cross at the Swan Ni. Immediately, the last of the ferocious beast's soul was shattered into pieces, but it still roared angrily at Lin Muyu, as if it was unwilling to accept its fate of being defeated by a human. But its roar became weaker, and its body turned into strands of divine power that seeped into the molten iron. Perhaps the Swan Ni's spiritual power was too strong, but Lin Muyu could clearly feel that a single weapon could not withstand the Swan Ni's powerful spiritual power. Well, she could forge another weapon after Qin Yin's sword. After thinking for a while, she decided to forge an iron whip for Tang Xiaoxi. Coincidentally, her usual weapon was also a flame whip. In this case, she could take care of both girls. She was really too smart. Lulu, give me a sword model. I want it to be exquisite and dignified. Yes, big brother. The female elf official's petite and exquisite body flew out, and in an instant, a few sword models appeared in Lin Muyu's mind. After careful consideration, Lin Muyu chose the most dignified one. The body of the sword was exquisite and elegant, and the lines were smooth and sleek. It was very suitable for girls to use, but the veins were simple and unadorned, and the edge of the sword was sharp, but it did not lose the majesty of an emperor. It was very good. Nearly half of the godly iron liquid was poured into the sword model. This iron liquid had been refined to 100% purity, so its hardness and sharpness were definitely not a problem. Then, the beast spirit was poured into it. The soul of the swan and I was too strong, and it was not something a weapon could withstand. Therefore, this sword could only withstand half of the spiritual power, but it was already strong enough. At least on this continent, there were only a few of them. When the iron liquid slowly solidified in the sword model, Lin Muyu began to refine the edge. She still used the forging method of compound edges, and her spiritual sense turned into consciousness and seeped into the edge. Like embroidery, she forged and reshaped the edge layer by layer. When it came to weapon forging, Lin Muyu was extremely patient. She forged a total of 18 compound edges for this sword, so the sharpness and wear resistance of this sword were already among the best in the continent. It was only slightly inferior to the star's sword. However, she did not know which great god in the heaven realm had recast the star's sword. Presumably, it was also a divine craftsman of this generation. Next was the process of carving the name of the sword. After thinking about it, Qin Yin was the female empress, so the sword she used had to be a bit more domineering. The nation-suppressing sword was a good name, because it also meant that this sword would guard the country and rule over the 9 provinces. However, after thinking about it carefully, it was not enough to guard a country. After all, there were still many experts in the heaven realm, purgatory, and even other planes eyeing it covetously. In that case, it would be better to name it Heaven-Suppressing Sword. She immediately carved the name, and this name was calculated and scanned by Lulu. After all, Lin Muyu's handwriting was too ugly to look at. There was no pawn in the room, so there was no other way. Lin Muyu slowly opened her palm, and the king's battle flame rose up. Under its master's control, its characteristics suddenly changed, and all of the flames turned into ice element frost, which lingered around the heaven-suppressing sword. The treasured sword could be considered complete, and with a dang sound, it fell to the ground. Lin Muyu bent down to pick it up, and lightly waved it in the air. Immediately, she felt a burning sharpness, as if this light wave was going to cut through space. The sharpness of this heaven-suppressing sword could be imagined. Lulu, what's the grade of the heaven-suppressing sword? Lin Muyu squinted her eyes and asked with a smile. Lulu chuckled, congratulations, big brother, it's the first level of the saint grade. Good. He placed the precious heaven-suppressing sword aside and began to forge the long whip that he had gifted to Tang Xiaoxi. He looked back and forth in the mold of the long whip and finally chose a metal whip with 9 sections. Only the tip of the whip had a blade, while the other 8 sections were cast from fine steel. However, if a powerful person used it, it would still have amazing lethality, just like Tang Xiaoxi. The godly iron liquid was slowly poured into the mold, and Lin Muyu was still patiently reconstructing the edge of the 9th section. This 9th section was like a vertebra, with a total of 9 parallel edges. Naturally, it took a lot of effort. After a long time, the whip was born. There were a total of 17 composite edges, and after Lulu scanned it, it was confirmed that it was the first level of the saint grade. Bai An's spirit stones were indeed not given in vain, it actually created 2 first-level saint-grade divine weapons. Lin Muyu couldn't help but sigh. It was all her fault for not being able to completely suppress Bai An's spiritual energy. Otherwise, if she could crush and reconstruct it and directly pour it into a divine weapon, it would definitely be a divine-grade weapon. Continuing with the naming, she named this whip the Nation-Suppressing Whip, which was very suitable for Tang Xiaoxi to use. When the 2 weapons were completed, Lin Muyu couldn't help but take a deep breath. After a short rest, she took out another spine of Baian and refined it into godly iron. Then, she used spirit stones that were around 10,000 years old to forge a weapon. Until noon the next day, she had forged a total of 12 weapons. Among them, she was more satisfied with 3 of them, all of them were 7th level saint grade, while the rest were all mysterious grade. It was time for Jean Xiaotang to properly promote herself and sell her weapons. Chapter 473. Jean Xiaotang spent a total of 5 days building up the power of the 12 weapons, while Lin Muyu slept for 3 days after she finished forging the weapons. She only woke up on the fourth day. Not long after she woke up, Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi arrived at the holy temple. The two girls were brought into the Grand Deacon's office by Deacon Guyang, while Lin Muyu was getting up from her soft bed. "Mu, what have you been doing these days? You didn't come to the holy sanctum or look for us?" Tang Xiaoxi questioned angrily. Qin Yin was dressed in a snow-white ladylike dress that accentuated her curves. Her whole person was radiating light. She sat on the bed and said with a smile, "Brother Yu, this month's income from all the provinces and prefectures have been sent to Lanyan City. After the Ministry of Revenue Statistics, the total tax revenue sent to Lanyan City is 700 million Jin Yin coins. You didn't expect this, did you?" Lin Muyu smiled. Originally, the major cities of the empire were quite rich, but the governors of the various provinces were unwilling to hand over the money to the imperial capital. As he spoke, he tilted his head to look at Tang Xiaoxi. "Ask me what I've been busy with these days. Xiao Shi, look over there. The sword is Xiao Yin's, and the whip is for you. See if you like it." Ah! The two girls were overjoyed. The sheath of the heaven-suppressing sword was ready. When Qin Yin held the hilt and pulled out the blade, a majestic saint power condensed on the blade. The sound of the sword lingered for a long time. Her beautiful face was filled with shock and ecstasy. "This sword is for me?" "Yes." Lin Muyu nodded. "This sword is called the Heaven-Suppressing Sword, first rank saint grade. It was forged from Bai An's spiritual stones. Xiao Shi's whip is called the Nation-Suppressing Whip, also forged from Bai An's spiritual stones. It's also first rank saint grade. What do you think? Do you like it?" Qin Yin's beautiful eyes were covered with a layer of mist. How could she not like it? Her beloved man was always looking out for her. This heaven-suppressing sword was more of Lin Muyu's love and expectations for her. She sheathed the sword and turned to sit next to Lin Muyu. She looked at him deeply and said, "I want this heaven-suppressing sword to become the nation-suppressing divine weapon of the Qin Empire." "Sure." Lin Muyu smiled lazily. "Oh right, I'm going to get up and wash up. You two chat first." "Yes." Tang Xiaoxi was also very excited. She held the nation-suppressing whip and felt the power of the divine whip. Suddenly, she smiled and a fierce dou qi surged around her. She gently waved the long whip. Immediately, the nation-suppressing whip reverberated in the air. At the same time, a flame ripple spread out. It looked very mysterious and violent. If this whip hit a person's body, it was likely that the person would be half dead even if they did not die. When Lin Muyu finished washing up, she put on a set of white royal robe armor. The white robe was made by Qin Yin, but the armor seemed to be newly cast. Especially the armor. Not only were there floating gems inlaid on it, there was also a black gem. When she reached out to touch it, a blue light emerged and a magic array was faintly discernible. "Wow, what is this?" Lin Muyu was stunned. "It's the engraving of the armor." Tang Xiaoxi smiled and said, "As the commander of the Longdan army camp, you are indeed worthy of wearing this kind of armor with 2 layers of engraving." Lin Muyu was confused. It seemed that her understanding of this world was still too little. She asked, "What is engraving? Can you explain it to me?" Qin Yin chuckled, You don't know what engraving is?" Previously, the armor that Grandpa Guyang gave me was all inlaid with floating gems. It was very light to wear, but I didn't know much about other things. Engraving is a profound secret art. Qin Yin pursed her red lips and looked at Lin Muyu's confused look. She smiled and continued to explain, engraving has been popular on this continent for tens of thousands of years. Actually, the theory of engraving is very simple. It is to use the spiritual energy of the gems to engrave an ancient profound array on the armor. This array will enhance the armor to a certain extent, just like this armor of yours. Qin Yin reached out her hand and gently touched the armor on Lin Muyu's chest. She said, "There are 2 layers of engraving on this armor. The first layer is the solid rock seal, which can provide protection to the wearer and block a certain amount of sword attacks. The second layer is the soaring seal, which is a profound array enhanced by floating gems. This layer of engraving can greatly reduce the weight of the armor. It seems that the person who engraved this armor is at least a great engraver, which is really rare. Rare? Why do you say that? Lin Muyu asked. Tang Xiaoxi explained, because the art of engraving has been passed down for tens of thousands of years, it has already begun to decline. Many great engravers, engraving guides, and even divine engravers have already ascended to the heaven realm or been killed. Moreover, the gems on this continent are becoming more and more scarce. People pay more attention to learning to dance and rarely study engraving. However, a great engraver is still very respected. Qin Yin lightly nodded and said with a smile, the Ministry of Works has a group of engravers, but most of them are only engraver apprentices and engravers. They are still far from being engravers, not to mention great engravers and engraving guides. Lin Muyu furrowed her eyebrows. She gently condensed a king's fighting flame on her fingertip and slowly stabbed it towards the armor in front of her chest. When it was about 5 centimeters away from the armor, a deep blue magic circle suddenly appeared on the armor. It was actually used to block the king's fighting flame. However, the king's fighting flame was too strong, and it still managed to pierce through the layer of protection. However, Lin Muyu was already secretly surprised. He had used 10% of his king's battle flame and could still feel the defensive ability of this engraving. If it was an ordinary soldier's sword, wouldn't it be completely unable to harm the person wearing the engraved armor? Therefore, he asked with great interest, how are the levels of engravers determined? Qin Yin smiled as if she was familiar with them. They are divided into engraver apprentice, engraver master, great engraver, engraver guide, great engraver, king's engraver, and divine engraver. There are 7 levels in total. However, for thousands of years, most of the engravers are only at the first 4 levels. As for great engraver and king's engraver, there are only a few of them. Divine engravers are even rarer. The most powerful engraver in the Qin Empire in recent years, Zhang Lin, passed away more than 70 years ago. At that time, he was a king's engraver. Tang Xiaoxi looked at Lin Muyu with a smile and asked, why, Mu, do you want to learn engraver? Lin Muyu heavily nodded and said, it's never a bad thing to have more skills. In fact, he was imagining another scene in his mind. A group of heavy cavalrymen in the Longdan army camp were holding their engraved shields and were unstoppable in the midst of armor demons. It was such a wonderful scene. Where are we going now? Tang Xiaoxi asked. Zine Flower Chamber of Commerce. Let's go and have a look at our property. Okay. Outside the door, Bai Yin, who was wearing the uniform of the Longdan army camp, saluted respectfully and led a warhorse. This bodyguard finally looked like a bodyguard. If Guyang hadn't told Lin Muyu that the old hens in the kitchen had been disappearing for no reason recently, Lin Muyu wouldn't have believed it. In the Zine Flower Chamber of Commerce, the workers were hurriedly making and carrying goods. When Lin Muyu, Qin Yin, and Tang Xiaoxi arrived, they were immediately led into the office hall by someone. Big brother Yu. Jin Xiaotang wore a set of pink fur armor and a short skirt made of white cloud deerskin. Her long and slender legs were wearing small boots, and her mature figure was becoming more and more enchanting. She walked up with a smile and said, "You're finally willing to come to the Merchant Guild." As she spoke, she saw Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi. She immediately said respectfully, "Greetings, Your Highness, Princess." "Dispense with the formalities," Qin Yin smiled, "I'm just here to watch the fun. You can chat with you." Jin Xiaotang stepped forward and held Lin Muyu's arm. She smiled intimately and said, "The promotion for the 12 divine weapons has been completed. Now, everyone in Lanyan City knows that the Zine Flower Chamber of Commerce will be selling 3 saint weapons and 9 mysterious weapons in 2 days. Many nobles have rushed here from the major provinces. Some even saw merchants from Lingnan entering the imperial capital. They must have heard the news and come here." Not bad, not bad. Lin Muyu couldn't stop praising. Jin Xiaotang looked at the armor on his chest and smiled mysteriously. How do you like this armor? I personally ordered someone to make 2 layers of engraving for you. Oh. Lin Muyu couldn't help but be delighted. Who's so powerful to be able to make 2 layers of engraving? Humph. Jin Xiaotang's pink lips curled up slightly as she said proudly. He's a talent that I spent a lot of money to poach from the Cloud Province. I'll introduce him to you right away. All right. Jin Xiaotang immediately said to the servants, go invite the master and a few engravers over. Yes. Not long after, a few people dressed in luxurious clothing walked in. Some were in their 50s and 60s, while others were in their 20s and 30s. One of them was a young man with a large jade hanging from his waist. He looked arrogant and held a paper fan in his hand. He looked to be in his 30s, and no matter how one looked at him, he looked like a spoiled brat. However, he was the one with the highest level of engraving in this group. Jin Xiaotang smiled. Let me introduce you. This is Wei Miao, the descendant of an engraver family in the Cloud Province. He's the only engraver in our Purple Flower Chamber of Commerce. Young Master Wei, this is the true owner of the Purple Flower Chamber of Commerce, one of the 4 heroes of Lan Yan, Lin Muyu, one of the Empire's great generals. Wei Miao slowly closed his paper fan and bowed respectfully to Lin Muyu. This commoner, Wei Miao, pays his respects to Commander Yu. You're welcome. Lin Muyu raised his hand. Even though the hint of arrogance in Wei Miao's eyes did not escape Lin Muyu's notice, he was not offended by the fact that a person with supreme skills would have a temper. Jin Xiaotang continued to introduce the engravers behind her. This is Zhang Zhao, a great engraver. This is Sun Jing, also a great engraver. They are masters hired by the Purple Flower Chamber of Commerce with a large sum of money. Nice to meet you all. Lin Muyu cupped her fists. Everyone bowed respectfully. Lin Muyu then whispered to Jin Xiaotang, Xiaotang, next, is the Purple Flower Chamber of Commerce going to focus on engraving? No. Jin Xiaotang smiled mischievously and whispered, if we want to expand our business, we have to consider all aspects. The Empire has been peaceful for decades, and engraving on armors was on the verge of decline. However, with the chaos of the Iha nation and the demon race, there's a market for engraving on armors again. Our Purple Flower Chamber of Commerce can't fall behind the Dragon Search Chamber of Commerce, right? All right. Lin Muyu smiled happily. It was really reassuring to have Jin Xiaotang managing the Chamber of Commerce. This mischievous girl was born to be a good businessman. Chapter 474. Forget it, get up, I'm not blaming you. Lin Muyu raised his hand, and the pressure of the Holy Realm surged, forcibly lifting Wei Miao's body up. Just when he finished about 20% of the engraving pattern, a subtle echo came from the pattern, which made Lin Muyu excited. The engraving pattern seemed to have a life of its own, resonating with his king's battle flame. This should be a good thing, right? At night, the Zetian Palace's library was brightly lit. Lin Muyu searched for a long time, and almost flipped through all the books on engraving in the library. Among them, there were a few books that seemed to be worth studying, namely, Engraving Theory, Engraving Technique Essentials, and Engraving Formation Illustration. These books should be enough for beginners. When the engraving crystal covered the Imperial Fire Seal, the crystal shone brightly, and the number on the top jumped violently, finally stopping at 32. At the side, Qin Yin slowly woke up, and when she turned around, she saw Lin Muyu's handsome face, and couldn't help but smile sweetly. Good morning, big brother Yu. Tang Xiaoxi and Qin Yin were so shocked that their little mouths were wide open. Although they knew that Lin Muyu was talented, to be able to complete the 87% Imperial Fire Seal in one night was too shocking. Is that so? Wei Miao hurriedly knelt on the ground. I know I was wrong. Lin Muyu threw the armor behind him, and when he turned around, he was shocked. There were more than 100 royal guards' armors piled up behind him, most of them were scraps, and a few were successful products. But there were many types of engraving. From level 1 to level 7, the engraving became more and more profound. From the book, Engraving Theory, Lin Muyu knew the power of engraving. Level 5 Dragon Slayer Seal provided the armor with dragon armor for defense. Level 6 Imperial God Seal provided the armor wearer with a certain degree of immunity, and Level 7 God Slayer Seal provided the armor wearer with a strong divine power resistance. This also meant that a God State expert wearing armor with the God Slayer Seal would have a huge advantage over a God State expert of the same strength. Qin Yin was silent, and added a piece of meat for Lin Muyu, and said with a smile, "If you want to learn engraving, you must first eat your fill." But at the moment, Lin Muyu could only be considered an engraving apprentice, so he could only start from level 1. Lin Muyu was overjoyed. It seemed that he really had a talent for engraving. The spiritual connection between him and the Imperial Fire Seal must be what Wei Miao was talking about, and his king's combat flame was much stronger than Wei Miao's true qi. Only by engraving an 87% perfect engraving could he be worthy of his rank as a holy king. "Thank you, Xiao Yin." Lin Muyu couldn't help but smile. Lin Muyu opened his palm. After an entire night of engraving, although he was physically and mentally exhausted, the king's combat flame surging between his fingers actually had a more soft feeling, which made him extremely happy. The king's combat flame was very fierce, but it was definitely not the most powerful force. A true expert should be able to control and release it at will, and now that one night of engraving seemed to have improved his ability to control and release it at will. Just like what the ancient book said, engraving itself was a form of cultivation, and it was not a waste of time. Tang Xiaoxi opened the cabinet at the side, and took out a special crystal machine, and said, "This is an engraving crystal. It can test the degree of perfection of engraving. Come and try it." "Okay." The next morning, a ray of morning light shone on the table in the library, and Lin Muyu slowly put down the armor in his hand. After embedding the ice crystal, the Imperial Cold Seal was activated, and the testing crystal showed a number of 93%. TSK, 93% perfection. It was almost there. Success. Qin Yin was overjoyed, and she was even happier than when she completed a masterpiece. Qin Yin smiled and said, "It's okay, let the Ministry of Works forge it again. I heard that behind a successful divine sealer, there are at least tens of thousands of failed products." Lin Muyu was extremely embarrassed. "Good morning, Xiao Yin." They had lunch in the Chamber of Commerce, and Wei Miao, Zhang Zhao, Sun Jing, and the other engravers also had lunch together. When Lin Muyu showed great interest in engraving, Jin Xiaotang smiled and asked, "Big brother, you also wants to learn engraving?" According to the Engraving Formation Manual, there were 4 main types of engraving: Imperial Fire Seal, Imperial Wind Seal, Imperial Cold Seal, and Imperial Thunder Seal. As the name suggested, it was used to resist the power of various types of laws, and the power of these 4 types of engraving was provided by red agate, sapphire, ice crystal, and purple crystal. Although these gems were expensive, they were not considered rare. Shangguan Jingyue smiled gently and said, "Yes, the Imperial Guard armor in the Zetian Palace Hall is almost used up by you, sir." The 2 beauties actually quietly leaned over the table at the side and fell asleep. Lin Muyu did not disturb them. She only took 2 blankets from Shangguan Jingyue, the Empress's female official, and gently covered Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi with them so that they would not catch a cold. After that, she continued to focus on her engraving career. Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi did not expose their identities in front of the engravers, but when Lin Muyu said Xiao Yin, Wei Miao, Sun Jing, and the rest more or less guessed something. When they faintly felt that this talented and radiant beauty in front of them could possibly be the Empress, Qin Yin, all of them suddenly felt a little uneasy. They did not dare to touch the dishes in front of the Empress and could only eat the plate in front of them. The pitiful Wei Miao had no choice but to finish the plate of cucumber with mashed garlic in front of him. At this moment, the arrogance on Wei Miao's face appeared again. He held his chopsticks and said, "Commander Yu is a martial artist, and his attainment in martial arts is naturally far superior to others. However, the art of engraving is about the unity of the heart and the hand. Any slight deviation will result in failure. I'm afraid it will not be easy for Commander Yu to learn. Tang Xiaoxi said happily, although it is only a level 1 engraving, it is more than 80% perfect. Basically, this piece of work can be sold for more than 1,000 Jinin dollars in Lanyan City. It's broken? Qin Yin's eyes widened as she stood guard at the side. This time, he completed the Imperial Fire Seal in one go. When the red agate was embedded, a fiery red mystical formation faintly appeared. He used the testing crystal to check, and this time, the number jumped out to 87%. Cough. Therefore, he continued to study the Imperial Wind Seal, the Imperial Cold Seal, and the Imperial Thunder Seal. Suddenly, a corner of the mystical formation collapsed. Lin Muyu carefully flipped through the records of the Imperial Fire Seal and found that the engraving depth should be 0.07 centimeters. Obviously, his engraving depth was only 0.05 centimeters, which was far from enough. Thus, he took another armor and continued to try to engrave the Imperial Fire Seal. At midnight, Lin Muyu had already broken 7 or 8 armors, but he did not give up. His face was full of sweat, and Qin Yin helped him wipe it off and accompanied him patiently. Taking out a royal guard armor, Lin Muyu began to study. Following the illustration in the book, he used a small engraving knife to carefully copy the Imperial Fire Seal's mystical formation. Wisps of King's battle flame seeped into the mystical formation along the small knife. This was what Wei Miao had said, mind and soul as one. When engraving, one must inject one's own energy, otherwise, one would not be able to activate the engraving mystical formation. So expensive? Of course. Tang Xiaoxi chuckled, this means that the perfection of this Imperial Fire Seal is 32%. Normally, engraving less than 50% is a failure. There must be a problem with the technique and the depth of the engraving. Wei Miao. Tang Xiaoxi's pretty face turned cold, and she said, watch your words. The person talking to you is the Empire's General Lin Muyu, not some manservant working in the Chamber of Commerce. Does it mean that it's very strong? Lin Muyu asked carefully. Encouraged by the noble Empress's little girlfriend, Lin Muyu continued to concentrate on the engraving knife, and continued to engrave the Imperial Fire Seal. The Imperial Fire Seal was one of the simplest engraving techniques. If one could not even master the Imperial Fire Seal, then there was no need to mention the more advanced engraving formations. Jin Xiaotang smiled. The engraving masters in our Chamber of Commerce can teach you. Yes, I have this thought. Lin Muyu nodded. Yes. The armor you are wearing is Wei Miao's work, and the perfection of the 2 layers of engraving is only 67% and 72%. Yes. Lin Muyu looked ashamed. Moreover, the king's fighting flame was far stronger than the qi used by Wei Miao, Zhang Zhao, and the others. Logically speaking, the engraving of the king's fighting flame should be stronger than Wei Miao's and the others. Lin Muyu was not in a hurry. She engraved the metal on the armor one by one, and the engraving knife was wrapped in the king's fighting flame. Finally, a perfect circular Imperial Fire Seal was completed, and there was a faint red light enshrouding it. When a red agate was inserted into it, the engraving formation immediately let out a whooshing sound, and strands of energy flowed from the red agate into the engraving formation. It's fine. Qin Yin giggled, and she handed over another armor. There are many armors in the Royal Guards. Brother Yu, don't rush. Take it slow, and you will succeed eventually. Yes. Lin Muyu raised an eyebrow and said, young Master Wei, is the engraving that profound? She seemed to have gotten used to the days when Lin Muyu was by her side, and she only wished to see him when she opened her eyes every morning. So many. He said in shock. The principle of engraving was very simple. Engrave the required profound formation on the flat metal, and then insert a gem to provide energy for the profound formation. This way, the profound formation would naturally be activated. Of course. Wei Miao said proudly, our Wei clan has focused on engraving for dozens of generations, but there are very few true master engravers. I have practiced engraving for almost 20 years, but I am only an engraving guide. Commander, you are busy with other matters, and I am afraid that it will be difficult for you to calm down. It will not be good if you give up halfway. No. Impossible. Close to 90% perfection. Qin Yin looked at him with surprise and joy. You must be a genius, or else how could you? Chapter 475. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 days had passed. Lin Muyu had been studying engraving in his spare time, but he had only focused on the first level of engraving. He was not in a hurry to succeed, and after repeated practice, he was able to achieve a perfect engraving of more than 98%. Although it was only a first-level engraving, there were not many engravers in the world who could achieve this level of concentration and meticulousness. Jin Xiaotang had told him that even an engraving master like Wei Miao could only achieve a perfect engraving of around 90%. Sha, the exquisite engraving knife was gently grinding on the surface of the armor, and a layer of fine iron chips fell to the ground. The afternoon sun shone into the deacon's office through the window. Lin Muyu was focused on engraving, as if there was no one else around him. But the problem was that Tang Xiaoxi, Chu Yao, and Feng Jixing were all sitting in the office, drinking tea and chatting. "Brother Feng, what have you been busy with these days?" Chu Yao asked. Feng Jixing was dressed in a brand new high-ranking military uniform of the empire. He crossed his legs and drank tea, saying, "It's nothing much. I just train my soldiers every day and then cultivate the wind-walking saber technique. When I have time, I go visit Her Highness Feng Ning. Is the demon princess living comfortably in the capital?" Tang Xiaoxi asked with a smile. "Yes." Feng Jixing nodded. "I've asked Zhang Wei to bring her around the streets. Princess Feng Ning has mostly adapted to the lifestyle of the empire. She's planting flowers every day, and she's happy and contented. I really wonder if she'll get used to it when she returns to the demon's territory." Tang Xiaoxi raised her eyebrows, glanced at Lin Muyu's engraving progress, and said with a smile, "I heard that Feng Ning, is the apple of the demon king's eye. That cruel demon king is so willing to let Feng Ning, stay in the capital. It can't be helped. The demons have repeatedly sent people to persuade us, wanting to exchange Lingdong province for Feng Ning, But we didn't agree. Lingdong province is barren, and it's not good for defending. Even if we get it back, it will be easily taken away by the demons. Speaking of which, Ayu, that stinking brat, asked me to come over and say that I have something to discuss with him, but he's still fiddling with the engraving, ignoring me." Chu Yao laughed. "You has been immersed in engraving recently, so don't worry about him." But at this moment, Lin Muyu's carving knife suddenly broke the last leg of the profound formation with a kachet sound. Accompanied by the sound of the metal piece falling to the ground, the imperial fire seal suddenly shone brightly. When the testing crystal was placed on top of it, the numbers jumped rapidly with a continuous buzzing sound. It was extremely strange. Everyone looked over and saw a row of numbers appearing on the testing crystal, 100%. Everyone, and they, oh my god. Tang Xiaoxi opened her small mouth. 100% perfect, it can't be, this guy Mu is simply a big monster, Chu Yao laughed. In terms of level 1 engraving, you can be said to be number 1 in the world. Lin Muyu also finally raised his head to look at everyone. The king's battle flame vortex around his arm danced, becoming more and more vigorous. After completing this engraving, his strength once again completed a breakthrough. He had already stepped into the great success realm of the Holy Grandmaster realm, and was only one step away from the great perfection realm of the Holy Grandmaster realm. And Feng Jixing also seemed to see it, and couldn't help but smile. "Congratulations your strength has improved again." "Thank you big brother Feng." Lin Muyu nodded. Feng Jixing said, "Oh right, why did you call me here?" "I want to show big brother Feng something." What is it?" "It's so mysterious. Let's go out first, it's not very convenient here. Okay. After leading the three of them out of the Grand Deacon's office, they went straight to the backyard of the Holy Sanctum. Under Lin Muyu's command, the instructors and sparring partners who were training in the backyard quickly left, leaving the backyard empty. There were only fake mountains, ponds, and a few low-rise houses in the surroundings. What is it? Feng Jixing asked with interest. Lin Muyu said solemnly. It is something that can change the future of the empire. Big brother Feng, Xiao Shi, sister Chu Yao, step back a bit, stay 20 meters away from me, or you will be in danger. Oh. The three were confused, but they still stepped back according to her words. Lin Muyu took out a coin from her pocket. It was a magic crystal coin from the demon race. After weighing it, she pulled out the star's sword, cut off a corner of the magic crystal coin, and held it in her hand. With a shout, the walls of the seven luminaries' holy gourd and the blood dragon shield appeared around her, and then the king's combat flames surged, quickly turning into a blazing power of the law of lightning that lingered around the small magic crystal. Swish, swish, swish. Under the influence of the power of lightning, the small magic crystal kept trembling, and in the blink of an eye, it had been burned into a fiery red by Lin Muyu's pure combat flame. A trace of worry flashed across Tang Xiaoxi's pretty face. She had seen this scene before, and the destructive power contained in the small magic crystal was very shocking. Thinking of this, she unconsciously moved to the front of Chu Yao, and the pressure of the sanctuary around her slowly fell, and the two-tailed firefox marshal's soul appeared to protect her master and Chu Yao behind her. Feng Jixing narrowed his eyes. As a sanctuary powerhouse, he could also feel that the small magic crystal was accumulating a strong force under the power of Lin Muyu. This is... he muttered to himself. He wanted to say something, but stopped himself. He continued to wait and see. At this moment, the magic crystal, which was less than the size of a fingernail, had already been burned red, and it was trembling in Lin Muyu's palm. Suddenly, a light burst into the sky. Bam! A small mushroom cloud rose into the sky, and the impact formed by the explosion of the magic crystal tore the stone slabs on the ground, and the flowers and plants within a few meters were all torn into pieces. Even a nearby rockery had collapsed. Lin Muyu stood majestically on the ground, and she was safe and sound with the dragon blood shield protecting her. However, her heart was still in turmoil, and it was really uncomfortable. If it was not a small magic crystal coin, but an entire magic crystal coin that exploded at the same time, the destructive power would have been completely different. Did you see that, Big Brother Feng? Big Brother Feng. He smiled. Feng Jixing frowned and said, "You, magic crystals can actually explode. This is something I've never heard of before." Yes, but the requirements for a magic crystal to explode are very high. The magic crystal must be heated to a certain temperature with the power of thunder and lightning as the catalyst before it explodes. Lin Muyu recalled the scene in the cloud ridge, and she could not help but feel a lingering fear. She said, back then, Zhi Luo, one of the 15 elders of the demon race, ignited the magic crystal coins in his clothes and caused them to explode. I guess there were at least dozens of magic crystal coins, and once they exploded, almost everything within 100 meters was destroyed. Xiao Shi also saw that scene. In order to withstand the impact of the explosion, my dragon spirit sword was forcibly shattered. That was a saint-grade weapon. Tang Xiaoxi nodded lightly. The destructive power of the magic crystal that day was indeed more than 10 times stronger than today. Feng Jixing said, then. What do you think? Lin Muyu looked at the white clouds in the sky and said with a smile, I want to use the magic crystal energy for my own use. If it is possible, we can cast a magic crystal into a fist-sized ball, then cast a thick layer of iron on the outside, and then use the principle of 2 kicks and a circular pipe to make a cannon barrel. We can send the magic crystal 100 or even 1,000 meters away and detonate it. At that time, the power of the cannon will be earth-shattering. Will we still have to worry about not being able to defeat the demon race? A name was on the tip of his tongue, Magic Crystal Cannon. That's right, this was a common term that could be found on the streets. It was seen in all kinds of novels and games, but this was the first time that Lin Muyu felt that this name was so cute. As long as the Empire was the first to develop the magic crystal cannon, then this kind of magic crystal cannon would be enough to change the situation of the entire continent. With the power of the magic crystal cannon, even the gods would have to be somewhat afraid. But Feng Jixing was confused. What is a two-kick in a cannon barrel, what is that? Lin Muyu was speechless. I knew it. Forget it, you will understand when I draw a simple diagram later. But today, I called you over not only to show you, but more importantly, I want to discuss something with you. What is it? Say it. Feng Jixing laughed straightforwardly. I want to set up a weapons department in the Holy Temple and transfer Qin Xiling from the Ministry of Works back to the Holy Temple. If possible, I want to pull over some capable and experienced people from the weapons department in the Ministry of Works to help me. Oh. Feng Jixing was stunned. You want to privately develop this kind of powerful weapon? That's right. Lin Muyu crossed her arms, her eyes flashing with a strange light. She smiled and said, once this kind of weapon is completed, its power is enough to change the current situation of the world. But the Ministry of Works not only listens to the two of us, but also to Duke Lan, Duke Yun, Xiang Yu, Yao Yuan, and the others. There is no knowing what is in a person's heart. I can't imagine what the consequences will be if this kind of weapon falls into the hands of others. Okay. Feng Jixing nodded. Then let me help you settle this matter. But, when this kind of weapon is developed, don't forget Brother Feng. You must equip my Imperial Guards with this kind of destructive weapon. Don't worry. Then I'll do as you say. Oh right. Feng Jixing coughed and looked strangely at Tang Xiaoxi and Chu Yao. He then lowered his voice and said, you haven't visited Feng Ning, in a long time. She keeps asking me when you're going to visit her. She's the demon princess and favors you so much. When are you going to visit her? Lin Muyu stilled. Feng Jixing's voice was so loud that almost everyone on Skyspan Street could hear him. Tang Xiaoxi and Chu Yao naturally heard him as well. Humph. Tang Xiaoxi's pink lips curved slightly as she looked arrogantly at Lin Muyu. The snow-colored fur on her soft armor swayed in the wind. Chu Yao giggled and glared at Lin Muyu. The demon princess has taken a fancy to you. Humph, you're too promiscuous. Xiao Shi, Sister Chu Yao, I really didn't. Lin Muyu felt wronged. She explained, I'm just treating Feng Ning, politely. I think I'd better not visit her. Brother Feng, just take good care of her. Feng Jixing waved his hand. No, although Feng Jixing lacks girls in this life, I will never touch a demon woman. Let Zhang Wei take care of her. Anyway, Zhang Wei is heartless and only knows how to drink and practice martial arts. He has no mood to fall in love with any woman. All right. Chapter 476. In the middle of the night, a large piece of white paper was spread out on the Grand Deacon's desk. The candle flame on the bronze lamp swayed slowly. Lin Muyu held a crudely made fountain pen in her hand as she carefully drew on the white paper. On the paper was a crude blueprint of a magic crystal cannon. In truth, the forging of the cannon was very simple. Any normal person would know how to do it. However, what Lin Muyu could not figure out was how to make the magic crystal cannon leave the chamber and explode when it hit the ground. If it was not controlled properly, it would explode right in the cannon's chamber. That would not be worth it. Lulu. He called out softly. Yes, big bro, Lulu is here. The beautiful elven officer flew out and landed on his arm. She crossed her legs and asked with a smile, Big bro, do you have anything to ask Lulu? Yes. Do you know the structure of the magic crystal cannon? Lulu opened her mouth and shook her head. Not really. There's no blueprint of the magic crystal cannon in Conquer's database. Big bro, you should ask something else. Then, do you have the blueprint of the cannon in your database? Not really. Lulu was a little helpless. Big bro, Lulu is just a game elf, not a war elf. These things. Lulu doesn't have them, is that so? Lin Muyu was a little disappointed. However, at that moment, Lulu suddenly smiled and said, "But don't be too sad, big bro, Lulu's system has a thread on Conker's forum. Do you want me to check it for you?" Okay. Lulu sat there quietly, her eyes a little dazed. After a while, she opened her eyes and said with a smile, "I found it." On the 14th of July 2015, at 15:28 in the afternoon, a player called Xiaoyao Zizai was arguing with someone on the forum. He posted a thread about the collision principle of the cannon. "Do you want me to get it for you?" "Yes, that's great. Quick. N." A few seconds later, the details of a forum post appeared in Lin Muyu's mind. It was indeed posted by a player named Xiaoyao Zizai. His level was not high, and he looked like a newbie. However, from the way he posted it, it was obvious that he was a professional. He had hand-drawn a blueprint of the explosion principle and posted it on the forum. Perhaps, this person was from the military? Lin Muyu was secretly delighted. Her heart was filled with joy. "Xiaoyao Zizai, you really are my brother. If I have the chance, I will definitely find you and treat you to a meal." At this moment, a certain someone, who was billions of light years away, was drinking afternoon tea in the garden room of a private apartment. He was leisurely sniffing the coffee in his cup when he suddenly sneezed. He frowned, and his handsome face was filled with suspicion as he said, I keep feeling like I'm being targeted." The beautiful girl beside him turned around and glanced at him. She smiled and said, "Yo, someone's been targeting our brother Xiaoyao?" "It can't be. Dongcheng, didn't you just go downstairs to pick up a package? I can't even bear it for a few minutes." You're just too petty and easily jealous." "Is that so?" "That's right, some heartless guy is." "That's right, have you made any progress on the case that Captain Wang Xian asked you to investigate? Where did the second young master of the Long Xian group, Lin Ji, go? It can't be that he suddenly disappeared without a trace, right? Moreover, he disappeared for 2 years. I don't know. I really don't have a clue. Come, let's drink some tea. Who cares if he's Lin Ji? Who knows, maybe he's somewhere in Xiaoyao. Don't worry, I'll let Xing Lai and Fu Tu go investigate. Let's enjoy this happy afternoon." He carelessly reached out and hugged the girl's shoulder. The girl in his arms blushed, but didn't say anything. Obviously, Lin Ji in the Shattered Cauldron world wasn't as comfortable as Xiaoyao. He was painstakingly rewriting the drawings drawn by a certain unscrupulous person in front of his eyes. As he wrote, he tried to decipher the words on the drawings. He frowned and said, "What the heck, this Xiaoyao Zizai's handwriting is too ugly. It's like dragons and phoenixes dancing. What does he write?" It wasn't until the rooster crowed that Lin Muyu finally finished drawing the principle of the collision explosion. She used up 3 whole sheets of white paper. The magic crystal cannon. It was easy to explain, but when it came to solving all kinds of technical problems, Lin Muyu, the Holy King, almost died from worry. Not long after, there was a knock on the door. It was Bai Yin's voice. "Commander, the people from the Ministry of Works are here." "Oh. Let them in." "Yes." After the door to the office opened, a group of technical personnel wearing military uniforms walked in. Qin Xiling walked at the very front, and behind him were a dozen technical personnel. Qin Xiling pays his respects to Great Deacon and Commander Yu. Qin Xiling's expression was high as he gave a standard Empire military salute to Lin Muyu. "Xiling, there's no need to be so polite. Sit." Lin Muyu waved her hand with a gentle expression. "Xiling, take a look at these drawings first. See if it's possible to develop this new weapon." "Yes." Qin Xiling brought the 3 drawings over and carefully studied them. He was the one who developed the quiver, so his understanding of the magic crystal canon was naturally much faster than the average person. His eyes grew brighter and brighter as he looked at them. He couldn't help but raise his head to look at Lin Muyu and said, "Great Deacon, did you personally draw these?" "Yes, the ink hasn't dried yet." "Heavens!" Qin Xiling said with a face full of admiration. Xiling has to admit his inferiority. Great Deacon's wisdom is indeed incomparable to the average person. However, the only problem is how to trigger the explosion of the magic crystal. According to what Great Deacon wrote, the power needed to detonate the magic crystal is not something an average person can have. That's right. Lin Muyu said, probably only cultivators at the heaven realm and above can use the power of the law of lightning to detonate the magic crystal. However, in the entire empire, there are many people like this. What I want to ask is there anything that can store the power of lightning? It can't be that every cannon shell needs a cultivator at the heaven realm and above to store power, right? Qin Xiling couldn't help but smile. This isn't a problem. There is something called the energy storage crystal. Great Deacon doesn't need to worry. Although the energy storage crystal doesn't have many uses normally and the power it can store is quite limited, it shouldn't be a problem to use it to detonate the magic crystal. The only problem is that the detonation device is very complicated. Yes, no problem. Xiling, how confident are you in successfully developing this weapon? Qin Xiling thought about it. His eyes were filled with interest and he said, at least 80% confident. Good. Lin Muyu stood up and cupped her fists. Everyone, you are all the pillars of the empire. I have asked you to come over from the Ministry of Works. From now on, you are the people of the Divine Temple and the soldiers of the Longdan Army Camp. However, the development of this magic crystal cannon must be kept a secret. Therefore, you will need to bring your families to live in the Divine Temple. But don't worry, all your living needs will be provided by the Divine Temple. Your salary will be doubled. As long as you successfully develop the magic crystal cannon, I will ask Her Highness Een for your merits. Everyone will be promoted by 3 ranks. Everyone stood up and bowed. Thank you, Great General. We will definitely serve you with our lives. Good. Lin Muyu nodded and said in a clear voice, Wei Chou, bring Xiling and the other lords to rest. Arrange everything well. The Longdan Army Camp must do its best to satisfy their needs. Wei Chou cupped his fists and smiled. I understand. Lords, please follow me. Lin Muyu looked at Qin Xiling and added, Xiling, you must be careful. The explosive power of a small piece of magic crystal can reach 10 meters away. You must be careful. Qin Xiling cupped his fists. Thank you for your concern, Great Deacon. I understand. I will take my leave first. Great Deacon's eyes are red. You must be tired. Rest early. Okay. The next day, the first thing that came to her mind when she woke up was the engraving. That's right, it was time to challenge the level 2 engraving. After all, the power of the level 1 engraving was too weak. Whether it was the Imperial Fire engraving or the Imperial Thunder engraving, they could only resist the power of one type of law. The level 2 engraving, the solid rock engraving, could increase the defensive ability of the armor. This was not something that the 4 types of engraving could compare to. The carving knife made a sha-sha sound as it carved the solid rock engraving on the armor. The solid rock engraving was more complicated and exquisite. The level 1 Imperial Fire engraving only needed around 100 cuts, but the solid rock engraving required 300 cuts or even more. Lin Muyu used more than 500 cuts, only to find that the engraving was wrong. The first level 2 engraving was ruined just like that. She continued with the image of the solid rock engraving in her mind and raised the knife again. In the end, the second and third engraving also failed. The engraved profound formation did not seem to respond to her king fighting flame. This made Lin Muyu very annoyed. At this time, Jin Xiaotang's voice came from outside the door. Big brother Yu, the auction house's business was very good yesterday. We earned more than 10 million Jin coins. Do you want to come with me to take a look at the accounts? Big sister Tang Xiaoxi is also waiting for you. Oh. All right. After all, the Purple Flower Merchant Guild was her family's business, and also the main source of equipment for the Longdan army camp. Lin Muyu tidied up her armor and followed Jin Xiaotang to the Merchant Guild. She held a thick account book in her hands. After flipping it open, there were all kinds of details. The 3 Saint-grade weapons were all sold for more than 400,000 Jin coins. There were also many engraved armors that were sold for a high price, especially a double engraved steel armor. It was actually sold for a high price of 7,000 Jin coins. Wow, one armor sold for so much money. Lin Muyu was surprised. Jin Xiaotang burst into laughter. Of course, this armor was made by Master Wei Miao. According to the detailed account, the armor itself is worth about 20 Jin coins, and the gemstones used are worth about 900 Jin coins. We earned more than 6,000 Jin coins from this transaction. This is also the reason why Xiaotang poached Master Wei Miao and Master Zhang Zhao at a high price. Yes. Lin Muyu nodded. No wonder Wei Miao is so arrogant. Before she could finish, Wei Miao's voice came from behind. Don't you think Commander Yu's words are a little too much? Lin Muyu turned around, smiled, and cupped her hands. Master Wei Miao. Wei Miao's eyes were full of arrogance. I heard that Commander Yu has been studying engraving these days. I wonder if you have made any progress? Do you want me to teach you a thing or two? Tang Xiaoxi, who was at the side, was unhappy. A sly light flickered in her starry eyes as she smiled and said, Then why don't we have a competition and see if Mumu's engraving skills are better than yours? Competition? Wei Miao smiled. Those without talent can't engrave. I think we should forget about it. I don't want to embarrass Commander Yu. The engravers behind him also smiled. Engravers were rare, but they were a group of arrogant fellows. You're tuning in to the A Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.